corner every episode.
I guess. Do
Do you
you
want to
want to
get to
talk?
Stranger Things now?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So this is a new segment we're adding to the podcast. We discussed it after the last episode, where I've never seen Stranger Things. Austin's seen a little bit of it, not all of it, but he's seen some of it. So we decided since season 4 is going to be coming out whenever it comes out, why don't we watch it, see how we like it, and we do a review of it every week on the podcast instead of doing a separate review series. Um,
Yeah.
so uh, t Before we recorded the podcast today, we watched season 1, episode 1 of Stranger Things, and it was the disappearance of what the
Will
fuck is
Bowers, I believe.
yeah, Will whatever the fuck Byers or whatever the fuck. So,
I
did
could
you?
I could look up
So,
the title on Netflix on my phone if you want before we.
all right. So basically, with this segment, is what we're
Oh,
gonna
you're
start
cutting
off the
out.
show with a couple topics.
It,
The f- I don't know why I'm cutting out.
like, all right, talk.
Hello.
Keep talking.
Something smells like mashed potatoes.
All right, you're not. Uh, okay,
So,
the
as I
episode
was
is
saying,
chapter
with
1, The Vanishing of Will Byers.
with this segment, what we're planning on doing is when we start the show, we'll have a couple topics, and this is going to be kind of like our break in the middle of the show where we talk about the most recent episode of Stranger Things that we watched. So today's going to be season 1, episode 1. Then next week will be episode 2, and then until we finish season 1, then season 2, 3, and then 4 when it comes out, basically. And then after we do Stranger Things, we'll have a couple more topics before the episode ends, trying to format it out. So
Yeah.
uh, I'll let you start this because I was talking a lot during the Kyle Danger and Grim shit. So,
Well, when it comes down to it, I've seen this episode a couple times now, so I mean, I have a little bit more experience. The episode starts off with the four main kids playing Dungeons and Dragons. So the four main kids, you're gonna know. There's like a couple people that are in like mainstream things now because of this show. So
hmm
Millie Bobby Brown is one of them,
yeah,
but she doesn't show up till later. But Finn Wolfhard, who was in the It movies and The Turning and Ghostbusters Afterlife soon and whatever the other horror type movie, because that's really all he's in. Um, he's one of the
yeah.
main guys. The guy who plays Dustin, I think he's been in a couple things after this, but not. He's not as big. He's the one with the afro and like the.
hmm
I don't know what like I don't know what like I don't know how to say it like if I said something like dysfunction I don't think it'd be good cool or anything. Was it is it like a I don't know. It's some going on with his teeth. Something going on with his teeth. I'm not gonna say anything else because I don't want to get canceled and I'm not trying to be mean. But you'll notice him off the bat by that. So, um, but it's basically just like an introduction to the characters and to the story because it's episode 1. So,
hmm
they have the token black character. This is the 80s, so you have to have that one token black character because you know, this is all set in the 80s.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, I think it said it was set in '83. I think
yeah,
1983.
yeah. So then we talk about Will Byers, who is also there. He's one of the main four, and they go off home after Dungeons and Dragons. But Will Byers, he gets to his home, but the Upside Down basically takes him before because his family isn't home. And then the credits roll, or the opening credits roll.
Yeah.
Not the credits, the opening credits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then it shows like at the government facility or whatever it's called. Uh, basically there's basically the thing that attacked Will came from the government facility where they have access to another dimension and they do testing on creatures from the other dimension, and one of the creature that attacked Will or took him or whatever happened to him, that escaped from there because it came after this dude and killed him in the elevator, so it was able to escape. And so uh that's where that thing came from, whatever it is exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um fuck, excuse me. God damn. But I really did like the atmosphere of this episode, especially like the nighttime scenes were really well lit. I like the shadowing, I like the suspense, I like the build up, all of that. It was really well done. Um, I actually like when Millie Bobby Brown does come into this episode. I really don't mind her because she had no dialogue for one. Two, she's really young in this, and three, like her acting was way better than King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus Kong. So, that's about all you can ask for. So I didn't mind her in this. We'll
It's
see
okay.
how it
When
goes
we get
once we get
to
to later episodes when she's older.
we'll
But
get to season 2 and season 3 are the main things where she starts actually talking and emoting. So,
mhm.
oh, we'll see how you feel about that.
We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully she's better than her performance in King of the Monsters.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's my fucking god. 20 million for that performance. I will never let that go. That is
I think
criminal.
I think she was filming Stranger Things 3 season 3 while filming King of the Monsters. So I do want to mention that. Um,
Fuck. I keep burping.
but then
So
after the
basically,
credits,
oh,
or
go ahead.
you want to, are you gonna talk about before the like the credits are still or
No.
okay? Well, after the credits, we get to the main cop character, which I believe his name is Hopper, played by David Harbour. Uh, and Winona Ryder, who is the mother of Will, uh, puts in a missing persons case.
Hmm.
So that's the basis of the episode so far, basically.
Yeah, the basis is Will disappears. Not sure if he's dead or not, but he's either that thing killed him or it took him or whatever happened, and everybody just thinks he's missing. So they
Yeah.
send the sheriff and the police to look for him, and his group of friends is getting fed up with being told they can't go look for him, and they're worried sick, so they sneak out to go look for him. And then also in this episode, they have two dynamics going. They focus on the main kids, and then the other half of the time they focus on Millie Bobby Brown, who is a kid who escaped from that government facility as well.
Yes.
And they did tests on her, so she escapes and goes to this restaurant, and she doesn't really know how to do anything. So she's kind of like really freaked out about everything. She also has telekinesis and can use that. She eats a lot. Uh, she talks a little bit. She has a couple of lines. She says she has like a number on her. It says like D11 or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's because her name in the show from now on is gonna be 11. So
mm,
yeah,
so there's that dynamic as well, and it goes back and forth between the two. Well, I guess there's also sort of a third one with Will's mom and brother like being really emotionally distraught over
and
him going
technically a
missing.
fourth one too because of the Nancy character who is Finn Wolfhard's or Mike's brother, uh, or not brother, sister. God damn it. But
It's like your typical like older sister having her boyfriend over when their parents don't know type thing.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
oh, you're
all
cutting out again.
four actually going together. I don't understand that not
Maybe try to unplug your
that
mic and
not
plug it back in. Still nothing.
I don't know why
You're like robot-y right now.
my mic back in.
Okay, there you go.
Hold on, let me try something.
Alrighty. Oh, Demon Warrior cannot perform voice chat. Okay. Give me 1 second.
On my phone, my
Alright,
Wi-Fi
we're
like makes so apologies for that. So I was on my Wi-Fi and it was making my app like really fucking shitty. So I'm on my data now, so it sounds a lot better. So yeah, my Wi-Fi makes my phone run like crap because I'm on the PlayStation app. So yeah, that sorry about that. It was technical difficulties.
yeah, this is gonna be probably our longest episode of this podcast so far.
Yeah.
But
So where were we at?
we were talking about Stranger Things and basically about like the dynamics. You were saying something that it's your
Okay.
basic like
So it was
something.
like your basic like older sister, teenage girl that's like dating a boy and doesn't want their parents to know and like has them over when her parents don't know and she's not supposed to. It's like that typical kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how it changes in the future, but that's what it was like for the first episode. It had that kind of high school type of dynamic.
Yeah. Um
Um, but it was a really well done episode. Shot very nicely. I love, like I said, in the nighttime scenes, they look great. The lighting looks great. The suspense is great. I'm sure there'll be a lot more suspense in the future. I'm hoping it gets a lot better. For a first episode, I really enjoyed it.
See,
Even
this
though Millie
came
Bobby
out
Brown was there,
when
but
Netflix was at like its peak
mhm.
because like Netflix now, like we said, but we'll actually get to what Netflix is now because I think that's a topic as well we want to talk about.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
but like I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, especially the rest of season one to see how things turn out. So basically, the three friends sneak out to go look for Will, and they go to the spot that the police found Will's bike that he left in the woods. So they go to the spot where the police like they put up the caution tape, like the crime scene tape, and so they go there and they go into the woods. And on the other dynamic with Millie Bobby Brown, the people from the government place disguise themselves as social services and they come looking for her. So they
yeah.
shoot the dude that was caring for her and they try to take her back, but she uses her telekinesis to, I guess, kill those two dudes.
Yeah, I think it was because
And
they had like a blood wounds on their head now.
Yeah, and so she runs off. So at the end of the episode, they're running through the woods, calling out for Will, trying to find him, and then they run into Millie Bobby Brown in the woods, and that's where the episode ends.
Yeah.
So now both dynamics of the episode have met up with each other,
Yes.
and we'll see how things go in episode two. And I'm assuming just by seeing the covers for the other seasons, obviously Millie Bobby Brown becomes a part of the group. I can tell that easily, but
Yeah.
like I'm interested to see how the rest of the season plays out.
Yeah. So that was
Overall, as a first episode, it was really good. I
yeah.
would give it. This is like my first Netflix original series that I've seen. So for the first episode, if I had to rate it out of five, I would go. I would give it. I'll give it a solid 4 out of 5 because it's the first episode, so it's not going to be perfect. But I think it was a really good first episode.
Same here, honestly. 4 out of 5.
Yeah. So that was our Stranger Things review for the week. Next week we'll be doing season 1, episode 2. So
Yes.
stay tuned for that. I believe Austin said there's 8 episodes in the first season, and then 9 in the second, and then 8 in the third. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
Probably
So
more than freaking
now,
8 or 9 in the newest season because we've been waiting a long time. So
yeah. So, what?
go to
Yep.
the episode was called the weirdo on Maple Street.
Yep. So, last episode we did Stranger Things season 1, episode 1, and today we're doing season 1, episode 2. It continues off from where the first episode ended, where they find 11 in the woods. So they bring him back. They bring her back to Michael's house, and they're trying to find out who she is, why she was out there, and she's still like not wanting to really talk or whatever. She looks terrified of everything. They Michael's friends think it's crazy to have her there
Yeah.
and stuff. So then she sleeps there overnight. The only thing she really says is that her name is 11. Really.
The side plot. You should talk about the main plot, and I'll just talk about the side plots. That's how we'll do this. The side plots was Will's mother and his brother Jonathan. Basically, like, distraught over Will still. It's where we left off, and Jonathan, Will's brother, goes to their father's house, their biological father's house, and he's not there. Will's not there. He's at an upside down, obviously, but so Jonathan does that, and then and then and then Jonathan goes to another plot, basically, that Nancy, Mike's brother, or Michael, or whatever you want to fucking call him, but Nancy and Steve go on a date. I guess a date. I don't know. Is it? I mean, they kind of start making out at the end, so I guess it's a date, a double date. But Jonathan acts like a creep and starts taking pictures of Nancy like a young Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy. So, freaking. So that happens. Hopper is also trying to look for Will as last episode goes by, and the people from the factory or some shit, or the laboratory,
The
Um,
factory.
I don't know. Just shut up, man. They disguised it as a factory. I'm pretty sure.
They literally
Uh,
had a sign on the fence that said laboratory. It's not a good disguise if they put it on the
well,
fucking fence.
I'm pretty sure at some point in the series they do disguise it as a factory. I'm pretty sure at some point. So
Also, why is everything in the same fucking spot in
yeah,
the woods?
so the laboratory and the house that Nancy's at with Steve, both in the same woods because that makes sense. Oh, and by the way, these woods all connect to Will's house as well. So
Yep.
so woods, I don't know. I'm not talking about Xavier. But there was a lot of side plots. I mean, Barb goes to the Upside Down, which is Nancy's friend, at the end
Mhm.
and shit. So
Yeah, it's teased for the next episode. But the to the main plot with 11, basically she's at Michael's house and he's trying to hide her from his mom. I mean, he really doesn't say anything about his dad because he's more concerned about his mom finding her. But
the only thing about
also
his dad that
11,
he says is the lazy boy that he sits in and sleeps in.
yeah. So basically, uh, he told 11 that he could just like that she could act like she's lost and his mom could help her get help, and but 11 doesn't want help because she's scared because the people from the laboratory are after her and they'll kill her if they find her or whatever, and so she doesn't want any adults to know. So the only people that know about her is Michael and his two friends, and obviously she knows Will. She knows where he is. I don't know if they know each other, but she knows where Will is. Um, and so she is hidden in the basement, and then Michael stays home from school and shows her around the house and stuff. And then he hides her in his bedroom closet, which gives her a flashback to apparently the main science dude, like the blonde-haired scientist. Apparently that's her dad because she kept screaming for him, calling him Papa. So
Yeah,
guessing that's her dad. And she got locked into a room in the facility, and the closet reminded her of that, so she started crying. Then, like, not Will, Michael has his friends over, and he tells them that she knows where Will is and she can help them find Will, but they think it's a crazy idea, so they go to tell Michael's mom, and then that's when 11 shows them her telekinesis,
telekinesis.
sort
Yeah,
of. And so then they go to the basement, and they're asking her where Will is, and she takes their Dungeons and Dragons board or whatever it is, and she knocks all the pieces off of it and acts like the one piece is Will. She flips it over to the black side of it and puts Will in the middle, the thing that's supposed to represent Will, and she tells him he's there, and says that
Will's
something's
hiding.
after him. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's hiding, and they're like, hiding from who? They're like the same bad people that's chasing you, and she said no. And then she picked up this dragon piece and put it next to him, and with that she's talking about the
the
Demigorgon,
Demogorgon. Yeah,
which we got to see a little bit in this episode where what was her name, Barb?
Barb. Yeah,
She was sitting by the pool, and then the Demigorgon, like, whatever it does, it uses like electricity. It like fucks with it, and then like it just like it popped up, and you can see like a little bit of it for like a split second. But then it took Barb. So um, basically, the episode just ended with Barb getting taken, and
and Steve and Nancy kissing. That was pretty much episode 2. Sorry, I had to record another clip.
all right.
Be back recording.
Yeah, that was pretty much Stranger Things episode 2. Uh, to review it as an episode, it's obviously a continuation of the first episode, so it's just more of the same. It wasn't really any better or any worse. It was just more of the same thing. Um, I do like though, like the emotional like torment that like Jonathan and his mom were feeling. I feel like
Yeah.
they're doing that really well. They're honestly, I mean, it makes sense because it's their family, but they're more fucked up about it than Michael and his friends are. Like they're literally like they look like they're like his mom. It looks like Will's mom is gonna have a fucking mental breakdown or an
Well,
emotional
that I
breakdown.
think that's part of it because Winona Ryder, I think, actually went out of retirement for this role. Like that's how dedicated to this role she was. But like she puts her heart into it, and that's why Winona Ryder. I really like Winona Ryder in this role.
Yeah.
Um,
And the dude who plays Jonathan plays like a great big brother character.
yeah,
They even show like a flashback scene of like him and Will listening to "Should I Stay or Should I Go," like showing their bond or whatever.
yeah,
Um, they also had their dad in this episode. I think his name was Lonnie or something.
yeah.
He's an asshole. Ouch. But yeah, so I mean, episode two was good. It makes me hyped to watch episode three, see where it goes
I
next.
mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, we're probably gonna have to record, I think, another one of these sometime in advance
Hmm.
because I'm going on vacation. So, or not, it's not really a
Yep.
vacation, but I'm not gonna get into details. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the next episode. Um, I mean that was Stranger Things episode 2 or season 1 episode 2. The
Oh,
weirdo
also
on Maple
one
Street.
thing, one thing we forgot to mention is they find the cops find this drain pipe and it has Eleven's like
Oh
hospital
yeah, yeah,
wristband thing, and that's how the cops like locate the laboratory or whatever. And also they have a scene at that diner where Eleven was at, and the
guy.
scientist like made it look like the dude killed himself. They made it look like suicide,
Yeah,
basically. But yeah, besides that, that was Stranger Things season one, episode two. So
the
next week
weirdo
we'll
on
be
Maple
back with
Street.
another review for
Maple Street.
season one, episode three. The Stranger Things.
We could do that now. We could do that now.
All right, so we're gonna do the Stranger Things season one, episode three review then.
He was
Um,
called Holly Jolly.
hmm
Well, you usually talk about the main story. I usually talk about like the background stories in the show. So
Yeah, so part three. I mean, not part three. Episode three of season one picks up after the end of episode two, where Barb not goes missing, goes to the upside down, and it shows like Barb waking up in the upside down, but she doesn't know where she is, and it looks all like I don't know if that's supposed to be ashes or if that's supposed to be snow, whatever. But um, she like wakes up and she's like looking around and she's like calling out for Nancy because she just doesn't know where she is, and then she's kind of looking around for a second, and then all of a sudden the Demigorgon comes out of nowhere, and so she starts trying to get away from the Demigorgon, and she tries to climb, she can't find her way up, and then she starts climbing this ladder, and it turns out she was in the pool, but it's in the upside down. So basically, what the upside down seems to be is the dark underworld version of the regular world that they're in, is what it seems like. So she climbs up the ladder and she almost gets out, but the Demogorgon grabs her and she's calling out for Nancy. Meanwhile, Nancy is having sex with Steve, and she thinks she hears something, but then she pays no attention to it. and then Barb gets captured by the Demogorgon and killed by the Demogorgon, and
Yes.
but it was an off-screen death, and then that is what led us into the intro of the show. And then
And
after,
it went on to show Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, I think, and then 11
Mhm.
talking in the basement.
So
Uh,
basically they were talking about like Eleven's powers, and
yes.
the Dustin kid was like, oh, she could probably make this spaceship fly or whatever. It was like a Star Wars ship or whatever it was. Um, and but she wasn't making it fly, and it like Michael's friends are still towards 11. They don't really know what to make of her. They just think the whole situation with 11 is just overall a bad idea. And the one kid, not Dustin, what's the other kid's name?
Lucas.
Lucas. He is the one that wants to call the cops. He brings it up several times, and but so they basically it's in the morning before they have to go to school. So they devise a plan to because Eleven says she knows where Will is, as she showed in the last episode. So she's gonna show them where Will is or something like that. And so they go to school, and then they plan to meet at 3:15 after school. Michael gives 11 his watch so she knows what time to meet him there.
Yes.
And then they go off to school. And then what happened after that?
I think next was they went back to Nancy and Steve, and it was just like a kind of like a love scene, basically.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
basically, I'll let you handle it because it's like a
but
side thing.
basically, Nancy was walking, and she's just thinking basically that everybody's looking at her because of
Hmm.
like maybe Steve or the other two kids told what happened to everybody in the school because gossip and shit. So
Hmm.
she thinks everybody's judging her and looking at her, and basically she goes to her locker, and then Steve shows up, uh, asks her what's wrong. She tells him what's wrong, and then he says everything will be fine. Nobody knows. I didn't say anything, and then they kiss. Goes off to the next scene, which is Hopper and the police force going to the laboratory.
Hmm. There's a bunch of different plots going on. There's the main plot that has to do with Will and the 11 thing. Then
Yeah,
there's also a side plot of like Nancy, and there's a side plot of Will's mom, and then there's also a side plot of Jonathan, and there's also a side plot of the sheriff. Like there's multiple things going on and
uh,
uh over overlapping with each other this whole episode. Like
yes,
like you'll see one thing happen with this character, like you'll see like the Nancy thing at school, and then it shows like, well, oh, this is going on here. Meanwhile, the sheriff and the police are still looking for Will, but then they at the end of not the end, but like in the last episode, they made the discovery of the pipe that leads to the laboratory. So now in this episode, they're going to explore the laboratory, and it just has different dichotomies of all the different plots, and it shows how they interject with each other in the same universe. It's kind of like if you ever seen the movie Trick or Treat, it's kind of like that
yeah,
where it tells different stories, but they're all interjected with each other. It's just different things happening at different times with different characters, but it
yeah,
all at the end of the day culminates into what the whole entire thing is about, basically.
yeah.
Ugh.
All right,
I
so
mean,
oh,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna talk about the Hopper scene.
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead.
Um, so Hopper goes to the laboratory, asks for the like the people in charge, and he looks in like at the cameras because they told them that they have cameras everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Basically looks at the cameras, asks if that's it because they stopped the cameras afterwards, and he leaves. But then he tells the cops that they're lying because on the day of the Will search party, it was raining, but in the cameras it was not. And then we switch to the next scene.
I'm trying to remember what the next scene was after that.
I believe it was something to do with Will's mom. I think it was the scene with her, like, in a mix of, like, lamps and shit.
Oh yeah, so in the last episode, she had a thing happen where like she discovered that Will, wherever he is, she doesn't know he's in the Upside Down. So he is able to communicate with her through electricity and pretty much lights. And so she, after discovering that, she also saw not seeing the Demogorgon, but saw him like trying to come through the wall the last episode. So this episode she has a bunch of lamps set up around her bed and she's like going crazy out of her mind trying to contact Will however she can. And so now she's like obsessed with, like this episode she was obsessed with the lights just so she could talk to Will because like eventually Jonathan gets up and walks in and is just asking her like what the hell she's doing and saying that she's just going crazy because they haven't found Will yet, and he pretty much comforting her, says he's going to make her breakfast or whatever, and tells her she needs to get some rest. But then she, even though she appreciates that, she still like she believes that she can talk to Will, which she can. It's evident in the show, and so that's why she has all those lamps set up, pretty much. And there's also more scenes in this episode with that kind of stuff. You'll see.
Yes.
So what happened next? I don't remember the order of the fucking shit.
Hey, I hope we're not getting this if we get any of this mixed up, like the order wise, just don't judge us, okay? We're still talking about the scenes.
Yeah, in this episode a lot, especially they were going back and forth between all the different plot lines quite a bit in this episode.
Oh, I know what's next. 11 wanders around the house, basically.
Oh yeah, so she comes up out of the basement. Apparently just nobody's home during the day there. And so I'm curious though. Oh, wait, never mind. I was thinking they had the dog, but that's Will's mom that has the dog, not them.
Yeah.
So basically, she comes up out of the basement because she gets bored down there, and then she's like looking at all the stuff Will showed her, and not Will, fucking Mike showed her in the last episode. And then she discovers the TV in the living room, and she figures out how to turn it on. And then she starts flipping through channels, and then she comes across a commercial for Coca-Cola.
Yeah, Tony Schiavone's favorite drink.
So this makes her have another flashback to the laboratory where she was, and how her papa was making her use her telekinesis to crush Coca-Cola cans as a test to see what she could do, before eventually we see another flashback later, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But that was to see what she could do with her telekinesis, and then the one later is to see if she could do something destructive with it, basically. And so then she has that flashback.
And then she goes up to Nancy's room.
Yeah.
And, like, what are those boxes? Like, the ballerina boxes or whatever called?
Mm-hmm.
Like, music boxes. She opens that, listens to that, and then closes it. And then looks at a picture of Barb and Nancy. Somehow thinking that maybe she knows about Barb's death in the Upside Down.
Yeah. I mean, the way they made the shot look and the way that her expression was just made it seem like she could sense that either maybe not that she was there in the upside down, but definitely that something's wrong.
Yes.
I would say. Um, I don't know though because she knows Will's in the upside down. I'm not exactly sure how she knows Will's in the upside down, but I don't know if she knows Barbara was there or if she just has this feeling that something's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so that was that scene.
Next we get
I
another.
can't remember what's next.
Next we get another scene with Nancy. First she goes into her class and asks somebody where Barb is, and then she goes to lunch, sits with Steve and the other two kids, and the other two kids make fun of her for having sex with Steve, and then she asks where Barb is, basically, if anybody knows where Barb is, and Steve says it would probably be fine. Then she looks towards the door of the lunchroom and sees Jonathan, which that leads to the next scene where Jonathan is developing the creepy photos that he took.
Yep. He's like in this red. Jonathan's like in this dark red room. These are like things like rooms they used to have back in the day where they would develop photos from cameras or whatever. For some reason, they had to have red light to develop. I don't really know why, but so he was doing that, and then this girl walks in. I think
it's the one chick that
yeah.
Yeah.
She walks in and then she says something to him, and then he looks at the photos he took, and then she looks at it, and then he like takes it down as fast as he could, and then he like gets out of there, and then so that gets brought back up later on where they confront him about the photos.
All right, then the next it was Nancy, or not Nancy, fuck. Fucking Will's mom at her house after she bought Christmas lights. Basically, she bought tons of Christmas lights at the convenience store that she works at, and then goes back home, and Mike and Nancy's mom comes over with her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking a little bit in this scene. So basically, Mike and Nancy's baby sister, sees that the light is like the lights are blinking that Will's mom put up. I'm fucking up right now. I'm sorry. But like follows the lights to where they're blinking, and Will's mom notices that and tries to question the little girl, and then Mike's mom and her daughter leave.
Yeah. Oh, ouch, dog.
The next scene is with Hopper in the library, which I didn't really pay attention to. I don't know if you did.
So, dog. So basically, so after Hopper and the other cop or cops, whatever, went to the science place where they were telling them what was going on there. It's basically what they had said was basically Hopper has this like not conspiracy, but like this thought that like the night they found that wristband or whatever, it was raining that night. So at this laboratory, they asked the guy if they could check the footage from the cameras, and the footage they saw didn't have rain. So obviously he knows that they're lying about that night. So he has it in his head that they're lying. So then when he's at the library, he's talking to this other cop. I forget the other cop's name, but they're talking, and he just has this idea that they're like looking up the laboratory and like scandals it had or whatever, and he just does he like the laboratory and what they're doing there and just how they were, it just isn't sitting right with him, and he thinks that something is going on with that place, and the other cop is like, oh well, he's like not taking him serious, he's not taking the sheriff seriously,
Yeah.
and the sheriff is like, he's like, look, I'm not saying that it's not like I'm not saying a big conspiracy theory or anything. He's like, I'm just saying that like I think something's going on, and I think like something happened that they're not telling us about. And he's like, is it too far fetched to say maybe Will ran away and just ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time and saw something there that he wasn't supposed to see, so they did something to him. He's like, that's all I'm saying. And then as soon as they're talking about that, a cop radios in and is like, is the sheriff there? So he picks up the mic, and then immediately they start running out of the building and hop GTA style into their police car and like rocket down the road.
Which I think we missed a scene then there because a couple scenes because with Mike and the kids and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Mike and Lucas and Dustin get bullied and
Yeah.
like while looking for rocks, I think is what they're looking for. And that's a quick scene. 11 waits for them, and then that's when she has another flashback by looking at a cat.
Yeah.
The flashback was basically that like her papa trying to make her kill a cat, but she couldn't do it. So they tried to put her in the box again, but she resisted and killed 2 guards, and then her papa picked her up and carried her to wherever they went.
Yeah. And then um,
The kids.
Mike
Yeah.
Mike and his friends end up getting there to meet 11, and then Mike asks her if she's all right, and she's like, yeah. So then he told her to get on the bike, so she got on the bike, and then they started their journey towards Will's house, where they ended up. Also, other scenes that we missed was like Nancy was talking to Barb's mom, and Barb's mom was saying how she never came home and didn't know where she was, and like Nancy was like getting really really concerned about Barb, and
Yes.
even like when we got to another scene where they find, well, basically they confront Jonathan, and they take his bag and his camera from him, and they look at the pictures, and Steven gets all mad, and they tear the pictures to shreds, and you can tell they're all like, fuck Jonathan, except for Nancy, and so he rips the pictures to shreds, and then Jonathan's like, he was like, please don't break my camera, and then Steven acted like he was gonna give it to him, but then he just dropped it and the camera broke, and then they left because they had a football game or something. He said the big game, and
I don't
then
know
Nancy
what you mean there.
found on the ground a picture of Barb sitting on the diving board in the pool, because the reason they caught her eye is because she thought Barb left. She didn't know she was still there. So that's what caught her eye with that. So then she walks away with that picture, with a couple of those pictures, well, parts of them in her purse, and then the wind blows Jonathan's pictures away as he's trying to pick them up.
And then Nancy leaves the group to go look and see, like, in that area by the diving board and stuff, and gets chased by something. We think it's a Demogorgon, but we don't know. Goes back to her house and talks to her mom and said something like really bad is going on.
Yeah, she also found Barb's car just on the side of the road,
Yes, yes.
and just a random location. So, and then uh, after that happens, we go back to the kids, and they get to well. What happened first? Was it the kids getting to Will's house, or was it like Will's mom talking to Will in the little cubbyhole thing?
I think it was Will's mom talking to Will.
Okay. So basically, she has all these lights in her house, and she like the Christmas lights lead her to a part of the wall, and then she moves the shelf and then gets in this little cubby hole and has like a string of clear lights in her hand, which I don't know if they were plugged in or not, but she was like Will, if you can hear me, make these light up once for yes and twice for no. And then so just making it light up like she was saying. So then she was trying to figure out a way that he could communicate better with her. So then she starts painting the alphabet on the wall underneath all the Christmas lights, so Will could light up the different letters to actually tell, like, actually, I've not actually talked to her, but say words pretty much, or
Yeah.
spell words for her so she can understand what's going on or whatever. So uh, then she does
Ask-
that.
Asks Will. She does that and then asks Will a couple questions, like where
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah, and then he's like lighting up, and it says right here. And then she was like, "What do you mean right here?" She was like, "How do I get to you?" And then it lit up and said run. And then at that moment, the Demigorgon like breaks through the wall and starts chasing Will's mom, and she bolts out of the house.
And this is when we
And
get to Mike and the kids
yeah,
looking for Will.
yeah, and they arrive at Will's house, and they're all like, "What are we?" They're like, "What are we doing here?" And she was like, I had this look on her face, and they're like, "Yeah, it's Will's house. So what?" And then she was trying to say that he's hiding here, but they were just confused. They don't understand what she's talking about, and then they started getting irritated, and they're like, "Oh, if you made us walk all the way here just for nothing." And then that's when they hear the police sirens, and they see like a bunch of police cars and a fire truck and an ambulance going down the road. So then they decide to follow it because they realize something bad must have happened. So they all go towards that.
And then it basically what it ends with is them going to the site where the police are going to, following the police, and finding out that supposedly Will is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly. And then
Yeah, because like down in this quarry that they're at, there's like a body in the water, basically.
yeah,
But it's not disclosed who the body is yet. But they automatically think that it's Will. And I think the sheriff also does think that.
yeah.
And so then Mike and his friends get all upset, and
Mike blows up at
they get
11.
yeah, gets mad and is like, "What's wrong with you? If you knew he was dead, why would you have us on this wild goose chase?" And Mike gets upset and leaves. The rest of them standing there, and then the last shot. Oh wait.
Also, yeah,
Oh yeah.
Jonathan also almost runs over his mom because his mom is running
Running
towards
from
the
the
car.
Demigorgon.
Yeah, and then Jonathan gets out and hugs his mom.
Yeah, and then Mike gets back to his house because uh, his parents are already talking to Nancy about what's going on with Barb. So then he comes in, and then his mom's like, "What's going on?" And then Mike just starts crying while he's hugging his mom, and then it just cuts back and forth between Mike and his mom hugging, and then Jonathan and his mom hugging, and then that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, sorry if this is a jumbled mess. I mean, the episode was very all over the place, but it
Yeah,
still made sense.
like I said, they were like going back and forth between the different plots a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
like in the first episode, it set up all the plots, and the second episode was back and forth a little bit, but then this episode it was like scene with 11, scene with the kids, scene with Will's mom, scene with Jonathan, scene with Nancy, scene with Sheriff. It was like all back and forth so much it was hard to keep track of what was in what order.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a good episode. This episode
Yeah,
was
it was good.
more of a sadder note though at the
Yeah.
end of it. But episode 4 is what's next. As a teaser for it, it's called The Body.
Yes.
So it says, refusing to believe Will is dead, Joyce tries to reconnect with her son. The boys give 11 a makeover, and Nancy and Jonathan form an unlikely alliance. So there's a little teaser for what the next episode will be about. That's just what it says on Netflix, basically.
Yes.
So yeah, that was Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 3, and next time we'll be doing Episode 4, which will mean that we're halfway through the first season.
Yes, that will definitely mean that.
Yep. So, yep, that was the Stranger Things episode review for this week. All in all, another good episode. Season 1's been really good so far.
Yeah,
I'm hoping the rest is good.
It's been a while since I've watched season 1, and it's been pretty good.
All right, well, so Stranger Things,
Season 1,
episode 4 time. Yep,
The Body.
Yeah, The Body. That's what the fuck it was called. So we just watched it. Another good episode.
Yeah.
Not as hectic as the third episode. There wasn't as much. Like, there was still going back and forth between all the different characters, but it wasn't, like, as much as the third episode. So there was less to keep track of in this one.
Yeah.
So, episode 4, so episode 3 ended off with them finding a body in the quarry, and everybody thinks it's Will, but it's really not. And so this episode begins with, oh fuck, wasn't it, Will's mom and Jonathan getting told about it, or what the fuck was it?
Yes.
Yeah, so they were told about that, like them finding Will's body, and then like the mom started acting all crazy, and was trying to tell the sheriff all this stuff she's been experiencing, and also how we seen the cops coming up to their car at the end of the last episode. She also told them about the thing that was chasing her or whatever. But so we find out about that, and then does it go to the kids after that, or does it go to where?
It goes to Mike and 11, and Mike's arguing with 11, but 11 gets to where, like, in the, like, walkie-talkie you can hear Will, and he suddenly stops.
Yeah, so then Mike immediately contacts Lucas, and then is trying to get a hold of him, and then Lucas is acting like he doesn't want to pick up the walkie-talkie, and then he just keeps saying his name over and over. Then he picks it up, and then he tells him to get Dustin and get over to his place, like, right now. And I don't know why. I can't remember the order of the scenes. I don't know why.
Don't know either.
Well, let me go through the episodes so I can actually see.
Probably be good.
God, come on, Netflix. Okay, so I'm scrolling through it now. Yeah, so it was the whole thing with Will's mom explaining what was going on, and the sheriff went to his car, and then it showed all the different characters feeling their different feelings, and Jonathan was listening to music, crying himself to sleep, and Will's mom snapped and went outside and got an axe, came back in just in case the Demogorgon came back. And then it went to not Will's parents, Mike's parents watching the whole news thing about them finding the body. And then it went to Mike, looking at these drawings. And then 11 was like messing with the radio, and then he got irritated, but then like she started playing Will's voice from it, and that's when he got excited and called Lucas and told him to get over there. Then the intro came after that, and then it went back to Will's mom for a few seconds, and then back to Mike's house where he stays home from school, and his mom like asks him if he's gonna be all right by himself, and he said yeah. And then as soon as she leaves, he gets up. Um,
Yes.
and then that's the scene where he talks to Lucas.
Yes.
And then the one after that is where the sheriff, Jonathan, and Will's mom are at the morgue, so they can look at the body. If you want to talk about that.
Basically, it's a thing where Jonathan is sick to his stomach by seeing it, can't really look at it, and he talks to Hopper afterwards in like the waiting room, but Will's mom doesn't see like her baby is not dead. Basically, it's not her. It's not Will. It's not anything to do with Will. It's she thinks it's just like basically like a monster, basically.
Yeah.
Not Will.
Yeah, and then the next scene is fucking Steven and Nancy are talking in the alleyway about what's going on, and Nancy's just concerned about Barb's disappearance, and Steve, I don't think it's that he doesn't care, but Steve's more concerned about like the cops finding out that they were drinking and partying, and he's worried about basically saying like my dad's gonna kill me, and so he's more concerned about that. So then him and Nancy kind of have like a falling out because she's mad at him for being concerned about that over someone going missing,
Yes.
and Steven's just confused why she's mad. Uh, then after that is where they're all over at Mike's house, and 11 is showing them the radio thing, but it's not working, so they devise a plan that they need somewhere with a bigger radio and stronger signal, so they decide to go to the school and use their audio equipment,
Yes.
which leads them to where they're like, well, we can't just go there with 11 the way she looks because people are gonna like think something's up, so they give 11 a makeover and make her actually look like a girl.
Yes.
And then the scene after that is where they send the guy into the Upside Down, if you want to talk about that.
Basically, the laboratory sends one of their staff into the Upside Down with a rope tied behind them. He goes in, and then we cut to another scene before we see the end of that.
Yeah, so then it cuts to in class. Nancy's in class, and she's so upset that she can't focus. But then someone opens the door and asks if they can speak with her, which then it goes to the scene where Nancy and her mom are talking to the detectives, and Nancy's just kind of like not giving them the straight story about the party. She's just more concerned about Barb and Barb disappearing, but the detectives are more concerned about what was going on at the party, and then that's where Nancy's mom finds out that she slept with Steven and had sex with him or whatever, and so we see her mad about that later on.
Yes.
And then it goes to them going to the school and trying to get into the audio equipment room, but the guy comes and says they have to go to the assembly. So I'll let you take that part.
The assembly is mainly just them go. Well, first they just go into the doors, and then it goes to the assembly. But like the assembly is just like a regular school assembly, and then the boys realize that the bullies from the last couple episodes are laughing and making jokes about the whole assembly for Will.
Mm-hmm.
So then after the assembly, Mike confronts them. The bullies say there's always different ways to cope, but they're just trying to cover their asses. And then Mike pushes one down. The kid tries to fight him, but 11 stops him with her mind and makes him piss himself. All the kids
Yep.
laugh at him, and then they leave. Go to the
Yep.
radio.
Then it goes to where Nancy and her mom get home, and her mom is really mad at Nancy, saying she lied to the police, and why won't she just talk to her? And Nancy's just not even trying to hear it from her mom, and saying basically like everybody's so concerned about her and Steve, but she knows that something horrible happened to Barb, and she's in danger, or worse, and nobody wants to listen to her.
Yes.
And then her and her mom were arguing, and she was like, "Yeah, I slept with Steve. Is that what you want from me?" And then, like, her mom tries to console her, but Nancy just says, "Leave me alone," and then goes upstairs. And then she goes in her room, all just distraught. And she throws her bag on the bed, and then she remembers that she has the ripped pieces of the photos that Jonathan took from the last episode. And she finds the picture of Barb sitting on the diving board, and she thinks she sees something, so she gets the rest of the picture. Which I don't know how, in all of that mess of the ripped up picture, she was able to get every single piece to that specific picture, but she starts putting the picture together to see if she's just seeing something or if there's something actually in the photo. So she puts it together, puts scotch tape on it, and then realizes that Barb's not the only thing in the photo, and she sees something that looks like what she saw when she tried to find Barb. And then it cuts back to the laboratory guy in the Upside Down.
Yes, so the guy is in there, he's like in the Upside Down, and he's like getting back to the laboratory, and then he sees something, and he says to pull him back. So they try to pull him back, but then the rope stops, swings around, and next thing we know, he is nothing but like a carcass, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets pulled out as a carcass.
Yeah. So then, give me a second. So then it goes to where Jonathan is at the funeral parlor. I think he was setting up the funeral. I mean, it obviously wasn't the funeral, but it seemed like he was there to set it up or whatever. And then Nancy comes in and asks if she can talk to him for a second. So then they go out in the hallway, and then she talks to Jonathan and shows him the picture that there's something more in that photo he took that he might not have seen. And then Jonathan sees it, and they put two and two together, and Jonathan realizes that that's what his mom said she saw. And then he realizes that his mom's not crazy. And then tries to ask Nancy like what it looked like and everything, and she described it exactly how his mom did, and that's when he was like, that's when they left to team up or whatever. And then I guess Austin's gone, so I'll cover the next scene. So then we go to a bar where Sheriff Hopper and this other random guy that we haven't seen before. Well, actually, there was a scene earlier where they had a news broadcast and this guy was in it, because he was the quote unquote one that found the body. So sheriff was talking to him, talking about like how his daughter won a spelling bee or whatever, and so then the sheriff is like, "You famous? I feel like I've seen you before." And the guy was like, "Oh, you might have seen me on TV. I'm the one that found the body." And so the sheriff questions him further, and is like, "You know that quarry is government property or something, or state property or something like that," and pointing out that that guy doesn't work there. He's like, "So why exact?" He's like, "So tell me, why were you there?" And the guy was like acting like he was confused, and he tried to make up an excuse, and the sheriff like started laughing. He's like, "I just want to know why you're lying to me." And then they start getting heated towards each other, and the guy tells him to just mind his own business, and he walks out. And then it smash cuts to a scene where Sheriff Hopper is beating the guy up because he knows
Yeah.
he's lying to him. He knows that the guy knows something and was there for. He wasn't just there because he found the body. He was there because of some other reason. So he pretty much beats the answers out of the guy, and the guy says that that he is vague with it, but he says like they put him up to it, and they told him that he had to be there to find the body for whatever reason. And then he's like, "Who's they? Who do you work for?" And then he turns around and they see like a black sedan just sitting there. Obviously, I think it's the laboratory people watching them.
Yeah.
And the sheriff is like, "Who is that?" And the guy's like, "You're gonna get both of us killed." And then he lets the guy go and starts chasing after the sedan, but the sedan gets away, and then the other guy gets away. And now the sheriff knows that the laboratory people are definitely up to something
Yeah.
worse than what he thought. And um, then next is back at the school where 11 is trying to contact Will through the audio equipment, and then she has a flashback.
Yeah. The flashback is basically her kind of recite, like, I guess, like reciting telekinetic, like, basically telekinetically. I guess that's how you say it. Reciting like a chant to, like, I guess memorize that she had to memorize.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and her papa is right by the whole time. But after we get out of that flashback, the she gets to where she could actually hear Will on the radio, which also it jumps cuts from Will's mom to in this as well, because Will's mom is also hearing Will through the wall, and she rips the wallpaper, and she has a portal to the like the underground or upside down. I'm fucking dumb.
The underground.
Shut the fuck up. But
The
the
fucking
upside.
underground.
I mean, it's underground half the fucking time, so the upside down. But
To the Sonic Underground.
oh my fucking god. But she basically talks with Will and tells him to hide. And meanwhile, the kids are all hearing this except for Will's mom. They're hearing Will's point of view.
Mhm.
And basically, that's just how it ends. Basically, 11 does it until it like the radio blows up and she can't move anymore. And that's how that scene ends.
Yeah, and then Will's mom goes crazy and starts like chopping a hole in the wall where the portal was, but then suddenly the portal's gone, and she's just there dumbfounded. But then the next scene is Jonathan and Nancy inside the red room. Basically, they're taking that photo there to further develop it, and so Jonathan can like mess with the lighting on it and stuff, so they can get a better view of what is in the picture. And so it develops, and they both look at it, and Nancy 100% confirms that that's what she saw. in the forest when she went to go look for Barb, and Jonathan confirms that that's what his mom said she saw, and that's what she said chased her. So then is the sheriff going to the morgue where he goes to put his sheriff's hat on, but he hesitates. So he just goes in. He walks past the lady at the desk, and it says he forgot his hat there earlier, and so he walks back, and there's a guard there by where the bodies are, and he tells him he's here to meet whatever the guy was that runs the morgue, whatever his name was, and the deputy is like, "Oh, you're not allowed to go in there," or whatever. So then the sheriff just knocks him out, and yeah. So then he goes into the room where all the bodies are being held, and he goes to the one that's holding quote unquote Will's body, and he opens it and sees that it's clearly not Will, but something looks off about the body. So the sheriff just has this like intuition. He gets out a pocket knife and he sticks it in the stomach and cuts up, and he realizes it's a stuffed body. It's fake.
Yes.
So I think that's when the sheriff realizes that whoever it was that told that guy to be there obviously dumped a fake body to throw the police off their trail, basically. And then it goes back to, well, we're getting close to the end. It goes back to Will's mom before Jonathan comes home.
Yes. And I don't think it was Jonathan actually. I think it was
Oh yeah, it was
ex.
it was when Jonathan. It was Lucky.
Or not Lucky.
Her ex-husband.
Lonnie, I think. I don't
Or
think it was
Lonnie,
Lucky.
whatever. Same white trash name anyway.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so Lonnie comes over for whatever reason, and then him and Will's mom hug, and then the final scene of the episode is it shows the restricted area fence of the laboratory place, and we see the sheriff's car roll up, and he gets out with a pair of bolt cutters and starts cutting his way through the fence, and that's when the episode ends.
Yeah.
So the sheriff 100% in his mind knows that those people are up to something, and he's going against the law and everything. It seems that he's gonna. Oops! Don't play the next episode. It seems that he's gonna stop Netflix. It seems like he's gonna break in and see exactly what the hell's going on there, what they're up to.
Yeah.
Because something's not right, and he knows it now.
Yes.
And that's where episode 4 ends.
We're halfway through the first season.
Yep, we are officially halfway through Stranger Things, season 1. The next episode is episode 5, which is The Flea and the Acrobat. Hopper breaks into the lab while Nancy and Jonathan confront the force that took Will. The boys ask Mr. Clark how to travel to another dimension.
Alright.
So there's your teaser for episode 5.
Alright, well, that was our Stranger Things review for this week on the podcast.
Stranger Things season 1 episode 5, which was called The Flea and the Acrobat. So basically, it's at the end of the last episode, we seen Sheriff Hopper cutting the fence to the laboratory to get in, basically, with the bolt cutters. So this episode starts off with him breaking into the laboratory, and he's sneaking his way around. He's hiding in dark rooms and behind doors. And he's snooping his way around. Then, one of the important guys at the laboratory, it was the guy he talked to earlier on when he was asking for the security tapes. And him and 2 guards catch him trespassing. So they start talking, and then he knocks out the guy, and then knocks out the guards. And then he hightails it further into the lab, and people are trying to stop him. Then it cuts to Will's mom and dad. Uh, Lonnie is like staying at Will's mom's house, trying to. It seems like he's trying to comfort her, and he's trying to tell her that she's sick in the head and she needs help, and he's there to help her and all that. Um, then it cuts to back to Sheriff Hopper. He's going deeper and deeper into the laboratory, and he gets into the elevator. It's pretty intense so far with the Sheriff Hopper thing. Then it cuts to 11 laying on the couch, and then Will and the other two kids are talking about where Will could be. I'm sorry, not Will. Mike and the other two kids are talking about where Will could be, and then 11 says the upside down, and then Mike starts like thinking about all this like interdimensional stuff, and so then Dustin, this is like the first time they've had any sort of like character build for Dustin so far. He starts talking about the compass, like how his compass is messed up, and basically like the compass isn't showing true north because some magnetic force is messing it up. So something like an entrance gate to the upside down where Will is, something with that big amount of energy would make the magnetic field mess up, which would make the compass mess up. So then they decide that's what they have to do, basically, is go follow the compass to true north to find the gate for the upside down. Then it cuts back to Sheriff Hopper, where he's going deeper into the lab, and he's like still looking around. Then it cuts back to the boys, where they're devising what they want to do, how they want to go about the journey. And it's like it's cutting back and forth between the boys and Sheriff Hopper.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to Sheriff Hopper, and he goes into the room where they have the gate to the upside down inside the laboratory. And he's looking at it, he's fascinated, he starts touching it. He knows that the laboratory people are up to something. He knows that they are. And so he starts to go into the upside down, but then the people from the laboratory come from out of nowhere and they sedate him, and then the intro credits roll. So a pretty intense beginning to this episode, I'd say. So then, after the credits, we are back at Will's mom's house, where her and Lonnie are on the couch, and Jonathan walks in, and he's asking Lonnie what he's doing there, and Lonnie says, "Oh, I'm here to help you guys, whatever, trying to be a dad or whatever." Then him and Jonathan argue because Jonathan wants to tell his mom about what him and Nancy seen in the photos, to tell his mom that she was right, but Lonnie won't let him tell her, so there's a lot of tension there. Then it cuts to Mike and Nancy getting ready for Will's funeral, and then it shows Jonathan and Will's mom and Lonnie getting ready for Will's funeral. So pretty sad part. And then it goes to the funeral, and you can already tell, like, Will's mom just, like, no matter what anybody tells her, she still does not believe that Will's dead. Even with the whole funeral, you can see she's, like, looking strange and, like, looking disgusted that she's even at the funeral, because she knows that's not Will in that coffin and all that. So then she has a flashback. Will's mom has a flashback to where she was talking to Will about a drawing he was drawing. I'm not sure what significance it held, because I didn't really hear what Will was saying. Then it goes back to Sheriff Hopper, who wakes up in his trailer, and he's like all out of his mind, like, because at first he's wondering if it was a dream, and then he gets up and he checks to see if he still had like the mark from them sedating him. And then he just starts destroying his whole house, and we didn't know what he was looking for at first, but he just starts tearing his whole house apart, and eventually he finds that in his lights, those scientist people have bugged his house with microphones, so it drives him nuts. And so later on, well, we'll see what he does later on, but it shows a scene of the people, the scientist people, and the Pawpaw guy. They're at their tech center, listening to what we heard in the last episode of Will and Will's mom, like screaming, trying to get Will out of the upside down. And the scientist people believe that Will's mom is also in the upside down. They say she's in there, but she's not actually in there. But so, and it shows how they have her house bugged as well. So then we go to Jonathan and Nancy sitting by the cemetery, and they're talking about what they should do about the monster, which is the Demigorgon, what they should, like, what should they do about it. And so Jonathan devises the plan that they have to find the monster, and then Nancy's like, well, what are we going to do when we find it? And Jonathan says, we kill it. And then Jonathan goes into Lonnie's car and he breaks open Lonnie's glove box, and he steals Lonnie's pistol. And Nancy's like, are you crazy? And he's like saying how we have to do it. And then it cuts to the school where they're in the radio room where the kids were talking to Will in the Upside Down, and they have like this tech guy come in there, and the teacher is like, we've never had anything happen like this before. Now, they held this shot on the tech guys getting in their van. I think that these tech guys are people from the laboratory. It didn't say if it was, but I just feel like that these tech guys were from the laboratory, because they probably also got that radio signal, so they probably sent their guys as fake tech guys to check it out, because I don't know. That's just what I think, personally. Then it cuts to they're having a dinner after the funeral for Will.
God.
And the boys are talking to their one science teacher or whatever, I don't remember what his name is, and they're asking him about like interdimensional travel and parallel universes, and talking about the Upside Down, and he's telling them how there's infinite parallel universes, and they're asking him how, like, is there a way to travel there? And just pretty much trying to explain how basically it's explaining how the Upside Down is like a parallel universe, but the Demigorgon has found it's either the Demigorgon or the lab. Well, they didn't say the Demigorgon or the lab, but basically saying that, like, the Demigorgon or the lab, whichever, found a way to break a gate between the parallel universes. So, and he's saying that it would take a lot of energy, more energy than any human could make, to break a gate between the universes. So then the boys think that that's what happened to Will, that he found the gate. So they devise a plan to go try to find the gate, now that they know to follow the compass directions. So then it cuts back to Sheriff Hopper's trailer, and his two deputies knock on the door, and he comes out looking like a mess, and they're telling him that 2 more people went missing, and also that a gas station or something like that. I think that she did run away or whatever. And then the sheriff says he'll take care of it, and then slams the door in their face.
Yeah.
They're like, you think the sheriff is off his meds again, or whatever, because they think he's acting crazy, or he looks rough, basically. So then, about halfway through the episode, it cuts back to Will's mom walking around the house, and she notices Lonnie is trying to cover up the hole in the wall with planks, and she's asking him what he's doing. He's like, oh, I'm trying to cover this hole up. Do you want to freeze to death in the winter? And then he took all of her Christmas lights down when she asked him not to, and so she starts getting suspicious about it. And then it cuts to the boys and Eleven, how they're discussing their plan of what to do to go find Will. And then um, it shows Lonnie in the shower, and Will's mom finds something that Lonnie was hiding. Something about I don't. It had something to do with money. I don't know exactly.
It was like
It's some
something basically. It was a lawyer to basically they would sue somebody to like get money from Will so they could send. Supposedly it was because send Jonathan to college.
hmm Yeah, and then Will's mom gets mad because Lonnie doesn't even know. Well, it's not to that scene yet, but it's something basically where Lonnie's trying to extort them for money, basically. And then it cuts to Nancy in the garage practicing swinging a baseball bat because she's trying to prepare for going after the Demigorgon. And then Steve walks in and he's apologizing, saying, I acted like a dick and I apologize, and was talking to her. And then he was trying to get her to come to something with him, but she told him that she can't make it and that her brother's going through a lot and all that. So she said it'd be better if he just left. So he left. Um, so then we keep scrolling here. It goes back to not Sheriff Hopper. It goes back to Lonnie, where Will's mom confronts him about the money thing, and they get into an argument because he says it's so Jonathan can go to school, like college, basically. And Will's mom is like, "Oh, you don't know that. You don't even know where he wants to go. You haven't cared about him since he was 6 or whatever." And so they argue about that, and then Will's mom throws Lonnie out of the house and tells him to get out, basically, and says like she is going to keep the lights up every day till the day she dies if it means Will is still out there.
Yeah.
So then it cuts to Jonathan practicing shooting the gun at pop cans, and he misses every shot. And then Nancy walks up with the baseball bat, and they start talking about shooting guns and all that. And then it goes back to Sheriff Hopper, where he's talking to somebody on the phone, and then he gets mad and rips the phone cord out of the wall and leaves his trailer. Then the next scene is the kids walking down the train tracks, following the compass to try to find the gate to the Upside Down, basically. And then, like, 11 starts having some weird flashbacks. You can cover the flashback if you want.
Oh, the flashback is 11 in a weight suit going into a water tank and like doing like telekinesis. And I'll just cover all the flashbacks now. The other flashback goes to where she's actually in her telekinetic mind and sees a Russian guy talking, and then she sees something coming for her, so she runs, and then she's banging on the water tank.
I just assumed it was the Demigorgon, probably.
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah, so then after the flashback, it goes back to 11, and she starts kind of acting a little weird. Then it goes back to Jonathan and Nancy. They're walking through the woods looking for the Demigorgon. Then they start arguing with each other about how Jonathan doesn't like Steve and how Nancy's trying to be someone that she's not and is being like every other girl that he knows. And then Nancy starts arguing with him about how he was a creep that took photos of her and this and that. They go back and forth just yelling at each other, but then they keep walking. Then it cuts back to Will's mom's house, and someone keeps banging on the door, and she thinks it's Lonnie, so she gets mad and opens the door, and it's Sheriff Hopper, and he walks right in and just says, "Don't say anything." So he checks all her lights to make sure there's no microphones, and then it cuts to the kids arriving at this like trailer slash like abandoned car lot place, and then Dustin says his magnet is like acting even weirder. Then what's the black kid's name? I forget what his name is.
Lucas, I believe.
Yeah, Lucas. So Lucas starts getting all like an attitude about how they led on a wild goose chase, and says it's all Elle's fault because since she has powers, she's making the compass mess up. So then Mike and Lucas start getting in an argument because Lucas is just going way over the top, being angry, and Michael's telling him to shut up. Then it goes back to Will's mom and Sheriff Hopper, and he's telling her how like people bugged his place and how he thinks her place is bugged too, and was explaining how he went to the morgue that night and he checked the body that was supposed to be Will's, and he said, "You were right, it's fake," and it wasn't really Will. So it seems as if they're gonna work together as a team. Then it cuts back to the kids where Mike and Lucas are arguing, and then they get in a fight, and Eleven doesn't want to see them fight, so she uses her telekinesis to throw Lucas across the lot into a wall to get him off Mike, and then Lucas is like knocked out basically. Then it does the rest of the flashback Austin was talking about. Then it cuts back to the boys. They wake Lucas up, and he's just like still mad, and he's telling them to get off of him. And then Lucas just goes home, and then Mike and Dustin turn around, and 11 is gone. They don't know where she went, and they start calling out for her. Then the sun goes down, and we're getting towards the end. The sun goes down, it's nighttime, and Jonathan and Nancy are walking through the woods. And then they stop, and Jonathan's like, "Is everything all right?" And Nancy says, "I think I hear something." So then they look around, and they see a deer that's pretty much almost dead. And they're like, "What could have done this to this deer? It's not like a hunter or anything." And so Jonathan decides to just put the deer out of its misery. And as soon as he goes to do that, something drags the deer away super fast, and it scares the crap out of him because you couldn't see anything pulling the deer. So they follow the trail of blood, which just ends, and they can't figure out why it ends. So Nancy and Jonathan start looking around. Then eventually Nancy finds this tree that has a gate into the Upside Down. So she crawls into it and ends up in the Upside Down, wondering where she is. And she turns her flashlight and sees the Demogorgon eating the deer. And she accidentally steps on a branch and makes it snap, and the Demogorgon turns around and roars at her, and she starts running. And Jonathan hears her screaming, but he can't find her. And then the episode ends on the gate to the Upside Down on the tree shutting. And that's how episode 5 ended.
And we still have 7 topics.
Yep. So then next time we'll be talking about episode 6, which is called The Monster. Here's a description. It says, "A frantic Jonathan looks for Nancy in the darkness, but Steve's looking for her too. Hopper and Joyce uncover the truth about the lab's experiments." So we have 3 more episodes left of season 1 until we're done with season 1.
Alright, I think I'm going to do a fire around the topics and talk about 4 topics in like a good 10 minutes or so, and just do the rest of my topics. We can talk.
Right.
Just so we can get this over with.
Things.
Might as well.
All right.
Seems like every time I'm mad, we move on to Stranger Things now.
Well, I'm only asking because we have a couple. Let's see. Well, we have one more thing that's going to make you really mad, so we'll take a break from the hanger and talk about Stranger Things.
3, 4. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Alright, so...
Actually, wait a second. Stranger Things.
Alright, so... Season 1, Episode 6 of Stranger Things, The Monster. So... This episode starts off by continuing what happened at the end of episode 5, where
Yes.
Nancy goes into the upside down through the gate she finds in the tree, and she encounters the Demogorgon and starts running away, and Jonathan can't find her. Well, this episode starts off where she's still running from the Demogorgon, but Jonathan can hear her screaming, so then he tries to follow her scream and gets to the tree where the gate is. Now, they sort of had a continuity error for this part.
I think they had two, actually, because I think Jonathan was like walking away from the gate when it was closing at the end of the last episode.
Yeah. So basically, she's running from the Demogorgon. She tries to hide, and Jonathan's telling her, "Come towards my voice." And so eventually, he finds the gate and is like looking at it like, what the hell is this? Meanwhile, she is hiding behind a tree, and the Demogorgon can't find her. And then Jonathan's just looking at the gate, which in the last episode was supposed to be closed, but it was open again. But so then out of nowhere, her hand comes out. Nancy's hand comes out, and Jonathan pulls her out of the upside down, and she's like traumatized. And then then they hug, and that is how the episode starts, and it goes into the credits. And then after that, we cut to Steve and the other couple that they were with. They and I don't know if it was it might have been last episode where Steve was telling Nancy they were planning to have like a party again or something, and they asked her to come, and she didn't want to come. But
yeah, it was
this cuts to where I'm guessing they're going to do that, and they're telling Steve just forget about her or whatever. But Steve tells him to shut up, and he drives to Nancy's house.
And he tries to sneak in, but he sees Jonathan and Nancy on the bed, not doing anything, of course, but
but he assumes that they're having sex.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then after that, it goes to where Will's mom and the sheriff are talking at the table. I had no fucking clue what this scene was about, because Stranger Things, I have to give one criticism due to the fact that certain scenes, like you have to, like certain scenes like this, the dialogue is so quiet that you have to turn the volume up. And then when you get to an action scene, the volume is like ear-rapingly loud, so you have to turn it down. And I wish there was more balance of audio. Like, so this scene, like, I could barely hear it, and by the time I got it turned up, the scene was over. So I don't know what they were talking about.
I think
you picked up on any of what they were talking about.
I think they somewhat figured out something about Eleven's mom, which we'll get to later. But I think that's what they found out.
Alright. And then it cuts to Nancy taking a shower, and she keeps having these like PTSD flashbacks to what just happened of being in the upside down and the Demogorgon, and so she has Jonathan sleep over. He lays on the floor at first, but then she's like, "Can you just come up here and lay with me?" So they sleep together, not sexually, but they sleep together. And Jonathan like has the gun close to him in case anything happens. Then it's next scene is daytime, and we see Mike in the basement where he just looking around, and then he sees the spot where like Elle was hanging out, and then he just starts going ballistic and starts kicking it.
At that point, I said that's what Devon would do when it comes to Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, fucking. Then after that, it goes to the sheriff talking on a payphone, Then he gets back into the car with Will's mom and they drive off. Uh, then next is where Jonathan wakes up and Nancy is like reading this book and they're discussing what they are gonna do, and they're talking about like different animals and stuff, trying to compare the Demigorgon to different types of animals, saying how it like hunts alone like a bear, but
Yeah.
it's got like speed like a lion or something like that, or whatever the fuck they were saying, and they're
There
trying
was
to figure out how to
something.
kill it.
I think they were saying something that has something like a freaking a boar or something as well. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, and then while they're doing that, Nancy's mom knocks on the door. Well, not knocks. She tries to open the door, and Nancy has it locked. And then Nancy tells her, "I'll be down in a minute. I'm getting dressed." And then her and Jonathan keep talking. Then it goes to this next scene where pretty much the teacher inadvertently sets the boys up to be captured. Because if you remember in the first I think it was the first episode, the lady who pretended to be child services, she comes up to this house, and where the teacher is, like the teacher that let them use the audio equipment is that same teacher, and she comes to his house and she's trying to tell him about some kind of science program or something, and
I think it
she's
was like
asking
an
if he knows
AV
any.
club.
Yeah, and she asks if he knows any kids from the school that would want to be a part of it, and he says, "I know a few," which he's talking about Mike, Dustin, and Lucas. Um, so now the science people know their names and they know who they're going to look out for. So he inadvertently set them up to be captured. Um, then it goes back to Mike's house where Dustin arrives on his bike with some weird violin music playing. I don't know why they did that, but
I don't know.
uh, so Dustin goes in and he's talking to Mike about how Mike and Lucas got in a fight in the last episode, and they have like this rule in their group where if you quote unquote draw first blood, which means if you push first, you hit first or whatever. If you're the person that initiates the fight, you're the person that has to apologize, basically. Um,
Yeah.
and Mike is like kind of refusing to do it at first, but then like him and Dustin start talking about Elle and Lucas, and then Mike eventually decides, all right, I'll shake his hand, and Dustin talks about them like having to do this together and everything. Then it goes to it's like a flashback scene of like Elle laying on the bed, and then her papa comes in telling her that uh, what she saw in her like mind or whatever, like how she saw the Demigorgon. He wants her to not run from it, but he wants her to find it so they can see what it is or whatever. So then it has Elle waking up in the woods. I guess that's where she's been hiding out, and she just kind of like looks at herself in the water and just gets mad at herself and hates her whole life.
Yeah.
Uh, Then it goes to where they're having breakfast, and Nancy's mom tries to get in her room again, and Nancy has the radio playing. So her mom picks the lock to come in, and she opens it, and nobody's there, and the window's open. So Nancy and Jonathan went out the window. Then it goes to where Mike and Dustin go over to Lucas's to try to patch things up, and Mike says, "I drew first blood, so I'm offering to shake my hand," and then Lucas says, "I'll shake your hand and I'll be part of the team again, only if Elle isn't a part of the team anymore." And then him and Mike start arguing about Elle again. Dustin tries to keep the peace, and that was pretty much that scene. Um, then it goes to Elle going to the grocery store, if you want to talk about that.
Elle goes to the grocery store. She like she looks like one of those kids in the commercials, like $1. We'll feed her. You gotta
Oh
pay
my
$1
god.
though. And she's having a flashback about going into the the water tank again.
Mm.
And then she then gets asked by I think the store manager if her mom and dad are there and where they are, and she calls them a mouth breather. grabs like 15 different boxes of Egos and leaves. And by the way, those are frozen Egos. They're not gonna be good, like, just eating them raw. I don't understand. But that was that scene. What was next?
Yeah, so after that was like the flashback, like you said, and then her stealing the waffles, and then it cuts to the sheriff and Will's mom going to Elle's mom's place where she's, I guess, being taken care of by her sister.
Yeah.
And they asked to come in and speak to her. They try to speak to her, but she's kind of like
Catatonic.
Yeah, catatonic. So it's kind of a little weird, and the sister's like, oh, this is how she's been for however many years. And then it cuts back to, like, Lucas. He's, like, gearing up Rambo style. And then he goes outside, and he sees the tech guy van that we saw in the previous episodes, which I called it. I knew these guys were part of the laboratory stuff.
Yeah. You did call it.
So he sees Lucas, and, like, it looks like he makes a mental note with himself, like, that's one of the kids we gotta look out for. And then it goes to Mike and Dustin riding their bikes, and they're talking about, Dustin's talking about how Mike likes Elle and won't admit it, and he's like, no, that's not true, and Dylan's like, not Dylan, Dustin is like, yeah, it is true, you just won't admit it, and nobody else said anything about it until you guys started yelling and screaming at each other like a couple of goblins with 0 IQ or something. And then they were talking about how, like, that was like, she's like your best friend, and then Dustin, and Mike was like, no, she is my best friend, but you're my best friend, and Lucas is my best friend, and Will is my best friend, and Dustin's like, you can only have one best friend, and Mike was like, said who, and then said somebody's name, and Mike was like, well, he's my best friend too, and Dustin was like, all right. Then they keep defending their bikes, and then they eventually hear like a siren, and they pull up to the grocery store where Elle stole the waffles, and the store clerk we saw earlier is talking to the police, and they see like the shattered door and everything.
Yeah.
Then it goes to where the sister is talking about Elle's mom, some of the backstory there. She shows the sheriff and Will's mom Elle's mom's room, where she has her room set up because she thinks she has a child or something like that. But then like I guess the science people and the dad, which is Papa, I guess like did all this to try to convince her that she miscarried, to act like she never had a child, but she knew she had it. I get that's the gist I got from it.
That's basically what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just them talking about that, and it comes back to Lucas, where he's riding through the woods. He's doing like a Rambo mission on his own. He is following the compass, and the compass leads him to the laboratory place. And you can see that you see on the compass that the laboratory place is what's making the compass go all wonky. So he knows that the gate must be in there somewhere. And then it goes to where Jonathan and Nancy are at an army surplus store where they're buying weapons and stuff. They're getting like bear traps, gasoline, hammers, nails, gun ammo, like all kinds of different stuff.
Devon pointed out that there is no way that teenagers like that would be able to get that.
Yeah, because you would assume they would have to show an ID for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
even though this show takes place in the 80s, like I would think that you can't just buy that stuff even back then.
No.
Like you have to show an ID and all that. But I mean, whatever. Then they take all this stuff up to the store clerk, and he's like, what are you guys doing with all this stuff? And they don't really say anything. Then they're like putting the stuff in the trunk, and these two people drive past in the car, and they're like, Nancy, I can't wait to see your movie. You can talk about the rest of the scene, like the fight.
Well, Nancy realizes something. She runs to the nearest movie theater, and she sees that the next movie is some movie, and it says starring Nancy the Slut Wheeler. And she goes to an alley right by the movie theater, and she's seeing Steve and the one couple sitting there, like, spray painting the sides of the movie theater as well. Or maybe they're just talking, I can't remember exactly. But Jonathan obviously follows her. Nancy confronts Steve, slaps him, and tries to explain herself. But she can't really say anything. So she walks away, and then Steve, antagonizes Jonathan, talking about his mom, his dad, and of course Will, which then sets him off and gets Jonathan to pretty much destroy Steve. Like, he bloodies him. Jonathan gets arrested by the cops, which I don't even know how the cops even got their attention.
I don't know. He accidentally punched one of the cops, so now he's under arrest for assaulting an officer.
He punched one of the cops, and Steve got away. So it seemed like, and then...
Yeah. And then the next scene is them, the sheriff and Will's mom, leaving Elle's mom's house, and they're talking in the car, and then they get the page, like, they page the sheriff, and he's like, what? And they're like, oh, a fight just happened, da 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 da, and he's like, I don't have time for this. And then they're like, oh,
it's Jonathan
the
Byers.
fight was with Jonathan Byers, and then, like, Will's mom's, like, eyes get all big, and then they get on their way. Then it goes to the police station where Nancy's talking to, like, the secretary or something, I guess. And she's asking, like, how much longer they're going to be here. She's like, oh, for you, not much longer, but for him, he's probably going to be here a while. And then she was like, what do you mean? And she was like, oh, well, he's under arrest for assaulting an officer or whatever. And then she gives Nancy an ice pack, and Nancy walks over and gives the ice pack to Jonathan.
Well, the secretary explains that Jonathan didn't, says, your boyfriend's not going to be, basically saying that Jonathan's her boyfriend, and then...
Oh, yeah.
And then Nancy says, no, he's not my boyfriend, but then the secretary says, nobody would do something that stupid if it wasn't for love. So then that's when she takes the ice pack and goes to Jonathan.
Yeah. And then it cuts to back to the woods where Elle's sitting there eating the stolen, probably soggy fucking waffles that he stole.
Those waffles are done for, dude. There's no saving them. They were soggy. If they get frozen again, they're just gonna, morph into, this glob monster of fucking waffles. And it's not gonna fucking work out.
I mean, nevertheless, she was sitting there chowing down on him, and then, she hears in the distance Mike and Dustin calling her name, and they walk through ride through the woods calling out for Elle, and then it goes back to Lucas where he's trying to go around the fence and follow his compass, and then he realizes, okay, so it's something in there, so he climbs up in a tree and, gets his binoculars out, and is, trying to look inside the facility, and he sees their satellite dish and stuff, and he notices the tech guy van and the tech guy he saw earlier and that they've seen multiple times. And then it cuts to where the two bullies, the one that pissed himself in the last episode, they confront Will and Dustin in the forest, and then they're talking trash to him. And then, for whatever reason, the one kid just goes all Henry Bowers from It.
Yeah,
pulls out a knife.
he pulls out a pocket knife.
And then he, threatens to stab him. They eventually catch him by where the quarry is, and he holds Dustin hostage, threatening to... At first he threatened to cut him, but then he was, talking about dental work, for whatever reason. Maybe he has a teeth fetish, I don't know.
I don't know, maybe he has the like the teeth fetish, like the rapist from I Spit on Your Grave. I don't fucking know.
I don't know, but he said the only way he'll let Dustin go is if Mike pisses himself or if he jumps off the ledge into the quarry. And obviously the kid thinks he's not gonna actually do it, and so Mike walks to the edge, and Dustin's like, "Please, I'll lose it. I'll lose a few teeth." And he's like, "Mike, don't jump. You're gonna die." But Mike jumps, and they're all standing there in shock because none of them expected him to actually jump. So then they walk to the edge, and you're thinking, "Oh, you're gonna see Mike dead," but then Mike's just floating in the air, and he doesn't know what's going on, and they don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, he's brought back up to the top and let down, and like the bullies are just stunned, and then they turn around, and Elle is standing there, and she uses her telekinesis to shove the one bully to the ground, and the one that had the knife, she breaks his arm,
Yeah.
and they run off scared, and Dustin starts talking. She's, if you ever mess with us again, or if you ever come back, she'll kill you. She's our friend, and she's crazy, or whatever. And then it cuts to another flashback scene where she's in her dream and she sees the Demogorgon.
Yes. That's about it for that flashback, really, honestly. She just sees the Demogorgon, doesn't jump scare or anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
Yeah, she basically walks up. She sees it eating something. She walks up to it and goes to touch it, but he turns around before she touches him. And then she has like this flash. The flashback ends with like a hole being ripped in the wall, and eventually we find out that that's how the gate was opened.
Yeah, yeah.
The gate between their world and the Upside Down, basically.
Yeah.
And she starts waking up, and she was like, "Mike, I'm sorry." And he was like, "What are you sorry for?" And she said, "I opened it." And then Mike just doesn't pay any mind to what she says, and he said, "No, you saved my life. You saved me." And they all hug. And then they're all like walking home, and then we see another one of the tech guy vans. Same tech guy from earlier. He sees them walking, and he's like, "Oh, I got eyes on them. They're walking home." And then all these fucking science people, including Papa, they all fucking like gear up with like pistols and shotguns and machine guns, like they're going to a fucking Call of Duty Warzone free.
It's like they're gearing up for World War III. Like,
yeah. And they all get in these tech vans and they drive off, and Lucas sees them all drive out of the facility. And then the episode ends with Dustin, Mike, and Elle going to, I assume, Dustin's, because I don't think that's Mike's place. I don't know.
I don't think
I can't, I couldn't tell. It looks kind of like an apartment complex. I don't know. But, so, then the episode ends there. And that was Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 6. What's the next episode called, actually? Next episode is... Yeah, the bathtub.
You want to get the synopsis?
Let me go back. Huh?
You want to give the synopsis of the bathtub? Like you usually do?
Yeah, it's the bathtub. 11 struggles to reach Will while Lucas warns that the bad men are coming. Nancy and Jonathan show the police what Jonathan caught on camera. So I'm assuming that means he's going to show the sheriff the picture, and then like his mom's going to react to it or whatever. I'm assuming. But so that's what the next episode has in store for us. But overall, I think it was a good episode. All of it was really good so far. I love how everything is unfolding, and like I love how every different character storyline intertwines with each other, and like all the characters keep getting built from episode to episode. But we only have 2 more episodes left in season 1.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yep, next is episode 7, and then the last episode, which is episode 8, and then we'll be done with season 1.
Yep.
But overall, great episode. I liked it. Not as action heavy.
No,
but...
it's more. It was more of like a setup. I think it's setting up more for the finale soon than action.
It's clear. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Excited for episode 7, and I'm excited to see the finale of season 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Stranger Things for this week.
Recording.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the What the Fuck podcast. This is episode number 9. Fucking 9 episodes of this shit already. That means we've been doing this for 9 weeks, Austin. Two months and a week we've been doing this podcast
Yep.
already. And so, today's episode, we're going to do things a little bit out of order because we got a lot to talk about with this first thing. So we usually do Stranger Things in the middle of the show, but today, since we have so much to talk about, we're going to get Stranger Things out of the way first because Austin came up with the idea to do episode 7 and 8 together because we didn't know when after this we'd be able to finish it up. So,
Yeah.
because this is now the first episode we're recording where Austin now has a job. So,
Yeah.
so now we got to work
weird to say.
around my schedule and his schedule now. So, we decided to watch Stranger Things episodes 7 and 8 back to back and do the finale of the series. So,
Well, the season, you should say.
yeah. So if you want to start at the beginning of episode 7.
Beginning
Do you
of
remember what
episode 7. Oh fuck. Okay.
It
Let's
was
see.
it picked up from the last episode where they were at whoever house before the people
Yeah,
started coming out.
yeah. So they were at Mike's house. 11, Dustin and Mike were at Mike's house, and basically they heard Lucas on their walkie-talkie, and they were trying to figure out what was going on because he was out of reach. When he finally became in reach, they realized that the bad men were coming and that they needed to get out of there. So basically what they did was 11, Mike, Dustin, they all went out of Mike's house and found Lucas, and they ran to not ran, but rode on their bikes to the junkyard so they could hide out from the bad men at the laboratory. Then the laboratory people would then go on to question Mike's mom and dad, basically confiscating all of Mike's stuff and sending out a search team. Well, would you like to go and do what's next after that?
Give me a minute.
Okay. We will wait for him to do that.
Alright. So, after... Wait, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so after the people talk to Mike's parents, we get the intro of the show, and then it goes to where Sheriff Hopper and Will's mom arrive at the police station, because in the last episode they found out that Jonathan was arrested.
Yes.
So they get there and they're walking in, and Will's mom's asking what the heck is going on, and they're telling her that Jonathan assaulted a police officer, and then they show the chief all the weapons in the trunk, and then I couldn't hear this because Stranger Things has this problem where when there's dialogue, you have to turn the volume way up, but then when action is happening, you have to turn it way down because the audio is not balanced.
Yeah, we've both discussed when we watch season 2, which will be next week on the podcast. When we start watching that, we're gonna use fucking subtitles because it's like it's that bad sometimes.
Yeah, this episode and the next episode especially were really bad with that. Um, but uh, the chief was talking to Jonathan about whatever. I couldn't hear what it was.
It was basically about the Demogorgon and how they, Jonathan and Nancy were going alone and trying to kill it.
And then the next scene is, sorry if you hear any background noise, but the next part is where Mike's mom comes down into the basement because she's just so confused why everything is going on. Can you hear that in the background?
Not much, no.
Okay, so um, she's looking around in the basement and then finds the spot where Elle was sleeping in the basement and finds like a piece of her blonde wig that Mike gave her. So then they're still talking to the people and they're asking her about, they're telling her that, well, they're telling her and Mike's dad, yeah, her and Mike's mom, it sounds stupid. Her and Mike's dad, that they believe that their son, along with his friends, were holding this girl captive or whatever, however they tried to explain it, and and she got angry because they wouldn't tell him any details about what's going on. As she said, so you come here busting into my house, searching my house up and down, telling me my son could be in danger, but you can't tell me why, and you expect me to calm down. So then Paul uh, comes in and is talking to her. I couldn't hear this part because this is where they started talking quietly for some odd reason. I don't know if you heard what Papa was saying, because I didn't.
He basically said that he wished he could say more and that he would find a way to help her son.
Okay. Well, the next part is where, because at the beginning of this episode they rode their bikes away from the people that were after them, so now it's back to where the like abandoned car lot where they're at. They're basically, Lucas is telling them about like the science place and what he saw there, and they build like a little model of it, and he's telling them about like all the energy and everything and how it was making his compass go all wonky. And so then they decide that must be where the gate is. And then while they're doing that, they hear a helicopter in the distance, and they hurry up and shove their bikes under a bus, and they hide in the bus, hoping that the helicopter didn't see them. Oh God. Then the next scene, if you want to talk about this one, is where Will's mom's talking to Jonathan, asking him why he didn't tell her, and also the bully kid that got his arm broken, him and his mom come in the police station.
Okay, well, Jonathan and, I'm just gonna call her fucking Winona Ryder, because it feels weird calling her just fucking Will's mom.
I don't know what her actual name is in the...
I don't think we find out until season 2. But fucking Winona Ryder and Jonathan are speaking, and basically Winona Ryder is trying to ask why Jonathan went in alone and why he endangered him and Nancy's life by trying to go in alone. And basically saying that he's not alone and he could ask for help and shit like that. And the boy that got his arm broken and his mom comes in and starts basically his mom's a fucking Karen. It's a Karen. And so the police officer is getting chewed out. So then Hopper comes in and asks what the hell is going on. And then basically the boy that got his arms broken explains who did it, which he was 11, and then that's when Hopper Winona Ryder and Jonathan and Nancy go to get the kids. They had to, they had to like go somewhere to get the walkie-talkie to find the kids, I should say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then the next scene is uh, it cuts to Steve after his fight with Jonathan, and he's like banged up really badly, and he's sitting on his car, and the other dude and chick that were with him, like the two asshole friends, the ones who spray painted the theater or whatever they
Yeah.
did to it, they come out with I think like some sort of like headache medicine or something for him,
No, no, it
and
was a fucking can of Coke.
I thought they gave him like a bottle before that.
No, they gave him a can of Coke. It was legitimately a can of Coke. I don't know who you are, but with the cuts that fucking Steve got, I don't think a can of Coke is gonna help.
Yeah. So then they were talking about something, talking about Nancy, which got Steven really heated, and so he starts arguing with the dude, and it's saying like, you guys are assholes, you never cared about Nancy to begin with, and whatever. And then like the other dude starts calling Nancy a slut, which gets Steve really mad, and they start shoving each other. And then the dude like grabs him and is like, he's like, "What are you gonna do? You couldn't even beat. You got your ass handed to you by Jonathan Byers." And he's like, "What do you think you're gonna do to me?" And then Steve gets in his car and drives away. And the dude is like, he's like, "Yeah, Steve, run like you always do, run away." And then after that, it goes to
Oh,
where
wait a second, wait a second.
what?
The- I can't get over that they just put a can of Coke. That's like the fucking. That is legit like the school nurse strategy. Like, oh, your stomach hurts? Here's a fucking bag of ice. Oh, you fucking broke your arm? Here's a bag of ice. Like, that's so stupid. Why?
Or the fucking people that like would give you like a thing of like frozen steak to put on it or something like that.
Oh
I've seen that too.
God, Jesus Christ.
But the next scene is where the laboratory people are still at Mike's house, and Sheriff Hopper, Will's mom, and Nancy go over to the house, but they keep their distance so the people don't see him. And Nancy's saying how she wants to go home because her mom's there and she's worried. And then they see all the lab people, and Sheriff Hopper's telling her, "You can't go there. They're gonna kidnap you or whatever." And then they see the helicopter, and Nancy's like worried about Mike, and Sheriff Hopper says, 'Cause she's like, "How do you know Mike's not there?" And then they see the helicopter, and they're like, "Because they haven't found him yet." And then he pointed out the helicopter, and then they all get in the car, and they're trying to figure out where Mike and them could be at. And Jonathan, well, Nancy says she doesn't know because her and her brother aren't all that close. And Jonathan, the only thing he can think of is Will's walkie-talkie that he uses to talk to his friends. So they go to Will's house, and Jonathan goes into Will's room and gets the walkie-talkie. Then next is the scene where uh, Nancy and Sheriff Hopper are trying to contact Mike with the walkie-talkie, and the boys aren't sure if they should answer or not because it could be a setup by the laboratory people. So they debate on it, and then Sheriff Hopper gets mad, and he grabs the walkie-talkie, and he tells them that they better answer and that it's serious and whatever. So then they still don't hear a response, so they put the mic down, not the mic, the fucking walkie-talkie down, and then they're like, "Okay, well, what do we do now? Any other ideas?" And then Mike finally answers and says, "I'm here." And then there's a short, like 5 second, 10-second scene where the dude's trying to clean the Nancy the slut Wheeler off the movie theater sign, and Steve walks up and says he wants to help him clean it. So Steve's character has changed, and he's not an asshole anymore. And then it goes to where Mike's mom and dad are talking about like how they're confused about what's going on, and his mom is like, "Do you think Nancy's involved with it?" And the dad was like, "Nancy involved with anything with Mike? Nah." And then it goes to the scene where the kids are sitting in the bus and they think it's Sheriff Hopper coming to get them, but you can talk about this scene.
Oh, yeah. Basically, the boys are sitting. Boys and 11, I should say, are sitting in the bus, and then the bad men come, and then basically Hopper like destroys them because he's fucking a beast in this show.
Hmm.
Destroys all of them, and then gets the kids and takes them to Winona Ryder's house.
Yep. And then they're at the house, and Nancy reunites with Mike, and then sees 11, and then they're all sitting around the table discussing what to do about the upside down and what the boys know about it and what the adults know about it, and they're trying to figure out a plan of what to do to save Will. And so then they are asking 11 if she can contact Will, and she says that she can, and she tries to, but it doesn't work. So then she starts getting worried. Then she goes to the bathroom and looks at herself in the mirror, and then realizes that the only way she'll be able to contact Will is if she goes into a bath like how she did at the laboratory. And she tells them that, so that then they have to devise a plan. Meanwhile, uh, Dustin calls the science teacher, he pretty much cock blocks the science teacher, and it's like, I think they said it was like 3 a.m. or something like that, and
No, they
he's
said
like,
it was 10 p.m. on a Saturday, is what they said.
oh, but so Dustin calls me. He's like, I have a science question, and he's like, you do realize it's 10 p.m. on a Saturday or whatever, and but I couldn't hear what they were fucking talking about. I don't know if you heard.
Basically, like Dustin was saying, why are you said that you should never close the door of curiosity. Why are you closing this door of curiosity? And basically, science teacher is forced to basically give them like a science experiment, I guess.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, so then they talk about like how it has to be like a saltwater bath or whatever. So they're like Dustin starts doing like a math calculation, and they're like, how much salt is it gonna take? And then he says about 1,500 pounds, and they're like, where are we gonna get 1,500 pounds of salt from? And then it cuts to them going to the middle school, and they get into
well,
uh, the salt supply for the wintertime.
I mean, if it would have been easier to get some salt if it wasn't the 80s, there's a thing. If it was like set like like now, like
Hmm.
in the present day, they could easily get salt from Twitter. Easily.
Yeah, that's true.
They can get fucking pounds of it.
Especially from wrestling fans.
Yeah.
Mhm. But Sheriff Hopper and Jonathan start loading up the amount of salt that they need. Meanwhile, Dustin and Lucas are setting up a pool in the middle of the gym, and also Mike and Nancy are getting the water hoses. And while they're getting the water hoses, she's talking to Mike, asking him if he likes 11 or whatever. And he does the typical, oh, you girls, gross thing, but he really does like her. And
Oh, don't forget he asked Nancy if she's with Jonathan now.
I didn't hear that part.
Oh.
What did Nancy say?
She said, no, nothing like that.
And then it goes to the scene where Will's mom and Eleven are talking, and she's telling Eleven, like, no matter what you see, don't be afraid, don't run away from it, and is telling her to talk to Will and don't be afraid, and asks if she can do that. And she says, yeah. And then it goes to where Nancy's hooking up the hose, and they start filling the pool with the water, and they have to get it the perfect temperature, and then they start pouring the salt in. And the way to test that they have the right amount of salt is to put an egg in the water, and if the egg sinks, there's not enough, but if the egg floats, there is enough.
Yeah.
I guess I never seen that before,
I
but
didn't learn that in science class.
neither did I. Then Eleven gets ready, puts these duct taped goggles on, and gets into the bath and lays in it, and immediately gets transported into like the blackness that we seen in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Gets transported there, and she's looking around, and she sees what the Demogorgon was eating the last time she saw it, but the Demogorgon wasn't there, so she actually walked up to it, and what she found was that what the Demogorgon was doing the whole time when she kept seeing him was he was eating Barb's body.
Yeah.
And we discover that Barb is actually dead. And so there anything like Eleven says in the blackness, like the people surrounding her at the pool can hear. So she's saying how Barbara's dead, and then like Nancy starts getting all emotional, and then Eleven finds the like fortress in the woods that Will made called Castle Byers, and she looks inside and she sees Will almost dead, and Will's mom is telling her to tell Will that they're coming to get him and everything will be alright, just to hold on and make sure he's safe until they can come get him. And Will's like barely holding on, and then everything starts fading around her, and then she wakes up and she starts crying, and Will's mom holds her.
Yeah.
And then the next scene is Will's mom and Jonathan and the sheriff go outside, and the sheriff says that he's gonna go get Will, and Will's mom is like, I'm going with him, and he tries to protest, but she says, Will is my son, so I'm coming, and he doesn't give her an argument. And then she tells Jonathan to make sure everybody here is safe and that everything will be all right. And then her and the sheriff hop in the car and speed off. Then Jonathan walks back in and sees Nancy sitting on the floor. She's dealing with like knowing that her friend is dead, and they both sit there. I could not hear a single thing that they were saying during this scene.
Basically, they were just, Nancy was upset that Barb died and says that she wants to kill the Demogorgon, and Jonathan agrees, so that's what they go and do.
Yeah, and then it shows Sheriff Hopper and Will's mom arriving there, and they start cutting the fence to break in. Then it cuts to Nancy and Jonathan sneaking into the police station to go get all their weapons and stuff that the police confiscated. And then it cuts back to Will's mom and the sheriff. They snuck inside the laboratory place. All of a sudden, all the lights come on, and all these soldiers and everybody at the laboratory place is all pointing guns at them, and so they get captured. Then it cuts back to Will. He wakes up in the Upside Down, and he hears the Demogorgon moving around outside, and it shows like the Demogorgon's shadow through the light that's coming in, and everything goes quiet, like the Demogorgon left, and then the way the episode ends is the Demogorgon bursts into where Will is, and
Yep.
then that is Stranger Things, season 1, episode 7. Let me go to episode 8 real quick. No, stop playing it. Hate when Netflix does that. It pisses me off. Okay, then we figured we would just go right into episode 8 because this is all leading up to the big finale of season 1.
Yep.
So, episode 8 picks up right where episode 7 left off, where they're at the science place and Will's mom and the sheriff are being interrogated about what they know and why they're sneaking in there. And the Pawpaw character is talking to Will's mom, and she says, "I know who you are, and I know that you kidnapped my boy, and now he's in that horrible place or whatever." And basically, he's trying to get her to help him, and she tells him to go to hell. And then the blonde lady who pretended to be the child services, and this other dude were interrogating the sheriff, and this other bald hairline going bad dude was tasering the sheriff over and over again because he wouldn't tell him, but then he eventually told him what he knows, and he said, "I know you guys kidnap children and do experiments on them and all that kind of stuff."
Yep.
And then it cuts back to Mike, Dustin, 11, and Lucas sitting in the gymnasium, and then Mike gets up because he's curious about something, and he tries to find Jonathan, but realizes that Jonathan and Nancy are gone.
Yep.
Then the next scene is Jonathan and Nancy arrive to Jonathan's house, and they start setting all the weapons up.
Fucking
and everything.
like TV 14 Home Alone in the house.
Yep.
Basically.
They set a bear trap. They're putting all the lights back in so they can track the Demogorgon and all that. And then they do this thing, I don't know why they did it, where they both slice their hand with a knife to make a blood pact between them. I don't really know why, but then it goes back to the lab where they take Sheriff Hopper and Will's mom out of their interrogation cells, and they are having them walk together because Hopper agreed to help them, and they're walking them to this room where they tell them that they're gonna go in the Upside Down, and they give them the hazmat suits or whatever they are, and they say it's for protection. Then Hopper and Will's mom go down the elevator into the floor that has the gate to the Upside Down. While that's going on, the fucking lab people, who are overly excessive in everything they do, they lead this whole big group, and they start getting in their vehicles, and they pull out big ass army trucks and everything. I don't know why. There's no need for that. In one of the past episodes, they fucking goddamn armed themselves with each person had 18 fucking automatic rifles, like they were going to a fucking Call of Duty team deathmatch.
Whatever happened to those rifles?
I don't know. But every time these guys do something, they go so obsessive. When they went after Mike, Dustin, and Lucas, who are kids, they send 50 million vans after them, and they try to fucking run these children down with vans. Jesus Christ. So they get these big army trucks for whatever reason, and they go to find where the boys are. Then it goes back to Sheriff Hopper and Will's mom walking into the entrance to the Upside Down, and that's when the intro comes on. Episode 8, The Upside Down, the final episode of season 1. after the intro, it's in the Upside Down where Hopper and Will's mom are walking around, and uh, Will's mom starts like having breathing trouble a little bit, which causes Hopper to have a flashback to his daughter and showing like the beginning of her having cancer,
Yeah.
I guess. And then it goes from that to like it's in between. It's, he has flashbacks of that, and then goes to uh, the boys at the gym where uh, Mike tells them that Jonathan's gone, and then Dustin says he's going to go try to find some chocolate pudding for them to eat because he knows that the school has a stash of it. And then Mike and Eleven are just left alone standing there. Then it cuts back to Nancy and Jonathan where Steve arrives and they also fight the Demogorgon, if you want to talk about that.
Yes. Okay, so Steve
Uh,
arrives, he tries to come in, tries to talk, then he assumes that the cuts that Nancy and Jonathan did was from Jonathan and that he's cutting her. I don't. How would that work?
I
How,
don't know.
like, what is it like a fucking? Does he think Jonathan's just like part of this like Manson cult where
I
where
don't
he's
know.
like what? Okay, so then that Steve comes in like and tries to talk to Jonathan, and then basically, Nancy points a gun at Steve, tells him to leave,
Hmm.
and then the Demogorgon the lights start flickering, and the Demogorgon fucking comes in, fucking Kane, like out of the ring style, but like the opposite. And then roars. So Jonathan, Nancy, and Steve go to Will's room, and it
Hmm.
cuts from that, I believe. And like
Yeah.
no, it actually it goes back. It's it's still in the It shows them in the room. Jonathan wastes a fucking lighter basically, and they walk out, and nothing's there. So they're sitting there and they're like contemplating what's at least Steve is contemplating what's happening and saying that it's crazy. And Nancy tells Steve to leave. He goes and tries to leave, and then he has a change of heart and comes back eventually once he sees that the lights are flickering again and that Demogorgon's going to be back. The Demogorgon then goes and takes down Jonathan. Doesn't kill him because then Nancy starts shooting the Demogorgon, and that's when Steve goes and gets his like fucking homemade Abyss Janus and starts like clobbering fucking Demogorgon. And after that, Jonathan sets it on fire. It burns, and then they put the fire out, and it shows that it's just a foot on the bear trap.
Yeah. And then so after that, it cuts back to Will's mom and Hopper in the Upside Down, and they come across, which I'm assuming is a setup for season two. They come across an egg type thing. They don't
Yeah.
pay it that much attention, but they come across an egg, which the egg is probably going to be another Demogorgon or something. And then they keep walking, and eventually they find like Will's hideout place all destroyed, and Will's mom is like yelling for him and yelling for him. And then Sheriff Hopper sees like a stuffed tiger and it makes him have a flashback to where he gave his daughter that same stuffed tiger when she was in the hospital, and it shows him like reading her a story, and like the mom is crying, and then it cuts to after that Sheriff Hopper sitting in a stairwell like crying his eyes out, and then After that, it goes back to Jonathan. Oh yeah, we talked about that part. Uh, it goes from that to they're still looking around in the Upside Down for Will, and it's this really like intertwined scene with the two worlds because since they have all the Christmas lights in the regular world, basically in the regular world, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steven are in Jonathan's house, but in the Upside Down, Hopper and Will's mom are also in the same house, and because they have the lights, they can when they walk through the house, they make the lights light up basically. So
Yeah.
Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve follow the lights out to the front door, and somehow both uh, both Jonathan and his mom realize that each other is in the house in the different worlds, and then they walk outside and see like a street lamp nearby light up, and then uh, after that it cuts back to Lucas and Dustin trying to get the chocolate pudding, and then Mike is talking to Eleven. He's talking to her about like basically asking her if she wants to go to a dance with him or whatever the dance was called. And I couldn't really hear what Eleven was saying. And uh, then Mike kisses Eleven, which makes her smile. And then Mike runs because he sees headlights outside and he thinks it's Jonathan coming back. So he opens the door and sees that it's the laboratory people. And the laboratory people, for over preparing this much with bringing out army vehicles and guns, really have like no like peripheral vision apparently, because they pull up to the building that's opposite the gym that they're in, and Mike is just holding the door wide open, and all these military people get out and start going in the opposite building, and not one of them decides to look in the opposite direction. But I digress. So then Mike runs back and he's like, "Guys, the bad men are here. They found us. They found us. We gotta go." So then they're searching through the school trying to find them. The boys and Eleven are running through hallways. And then eventually they get cornered by the bad men from the laboratory. And the chick who was, I don't know what her name is in the show, but the blonde chick who's pretending to be child services, uh, and all these other soldiers like surround them, and like Eleven uses her telekinesis to make them all bleed from their eyes,
I
and
think
I
they
guess
were
that
exploding
kills
her.
them.
I think they were exploding. She was exploding their brains. Is what I feel like
Mm.
she was doing.
Yeah, so they all die, and then that took all of Eleven's strength, so she falls down, and then it cuts back to Will's mom and Hopper in the Upside Down. They're walking across streets and stuff, uh, and eventually they enter a building, and then it goes back to the boys, where after Eleven killed those after she killed the bad men, uh, more guards and Pawpaw comes in. The guards basically Pawpaw tells them to that he'll let them go if they give him the girl, basically. And Mike's saying no, and they're all protesting, saying no, calling him a bastard and everything. So then the bad men grab the boys and are holding them, while Pawpaw talks to Eleven, and he's trying to convince her that everything will be all right. And then she just keeps saying Mike's name over and over again, and then she says blood, and then everybody stops, and then it shows a tracking shot of the floor where the blood has drawn the Demigorgon. Then the Demigorgon busts out of the wall and starts killing people, and he also kills Pawpaw.
Yep.
Uh, and the boys carry Eleven, and they start running, trying to get away. Then it goes to Hopper and Will's mom where they are going through whatever building this is, and they see Barb's dead body, but then they also come across Will, who is just about dead, pretty much, and he has like this thing in his mouth, and so like Will's mom doesn't know what to do, and Sheriff Hopper just pulls the thing out of his mouth, and it looked like some kind of like demon snake type thing.
It looked like something out of Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, and he pulls that out of his mouth, and they try to free Will from the web, and it goes to the boys hiding in a classroom. They're trying to get 11 back up, and then the Demigorgon comes in, and the boys, what they resort to doing to fight this monster is they pull out a slingshot and stones, like and they're trying to shoot silver at Pennywise. It's not the same thing, and it has no effect on the Demigorgon.
They didn't have any battery acid.
Yeah, would you like to talk about how the Demigorgon dies?
Yes, 11 basically uses her mind to Thanos snap fucking the Demogorgon out of existence. Mike tries to stop her, but she throws him out of the way with her telekinesis and kills the Demogorgon while also making herself disappear. And it was the most seizure-inducing scene I've ever seen.
Like, I've never seen so many flashing lights in a show. Like, it was, like, even the people that don't have epilepsy, that hurt your eyes.
Dude, like, it was hurting my... I had to look away to even get through the scene.
Then after that, Mike is, like, crying, and he's calling out for Elle. And then it goes back to Hopper and Will's mom, and they're trying to resuscitate Will with CPR. And while they're doing it, the sheriff is getting a flashback of when his daughter died from having cancer, and they're trying to resuscitate her. And she flatlined, and when he thought of the flatline, it made him try even harder. And he starts like Donkey Kong pounding the shit out of Will's chest.
God.
To, like, dude would have had like a caved in chest, busted ribs, but fucking Will eventually like coughs and comes back to life, and Will's mom is hugging him, crying. Then it shows a scene where it's back to the school where the police are there, and I keep saying Will's mom. Mike's mom and Mike's dad show up, and they're trying to find where Mike is, and eventually they find him sitting in an ambulance. And then after that, it goes to a black screen, and then next is where Will wakes up in a hospital bed, and Jonathan and Will's mom are there, and they're crying, and they're happy that Will's awake and he's alive. And Jonathan said, "Hey, I brought you some of your stuff," and he shows him cassette tape and everything. And then it shows that all the characters from season 1 are all sitting in the hospital waiting room, and well, not every character, but all the important characters basically. And then it shows that Dustin and Lucas are sleeping, but Mike is like sitting up, worried about, I'm assuming, Will and Elle at the same time. And then Jonathan comes in and tells him that Will's awake and they can go see him. So he wakes up Dustin and Lucas, and they all run in there and hug Will, and they have this big, wholesome reunion. And they talk about everything that happened, and then like Jonathan's smiling to see his brother alive and happy, and then Nancy's standing behind him, and she leaves the room. And then we see Sheriff Hopper come outside, have a cigarette, and then people from the laboratory show up. Do you want to explain this part?
Basically, Hopper gets in the car and they drive away.
And what does it mean exactly?
It basically means that he's going to be involved with helping with 11 for the rest of the show.
So then it goes to a black screen. Then it says, I think it said a month later, and now it's snowing and it's Christmas time, and oh my god, I can't even talk. It goes to Mike's house, and they're down in the basement, and it's Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will. They're all playing Dungeons and Dragons like they were in the first episode, and they're all having fun, having a good time. And then Jonathan comes down and tells Will it's time to go. Uh, so they walk upstairs, and then Lucas and Dustin are getting in like a play fight, and Mike looks at the spot where Elle was sleeping, and he just gets all sad. And then Jonathan and Will go to leave Mike's, and then Nancy says, "Hold on," and she gives Jonathan a Christmas present, and then kisses him on the cheek. And it turns out that she bought him a new camera. And then Will and Jonathan leave. Nancy goes in the living room and sits with Steve on the couch. So her and Steve are back together.
Yep.
And then after that, we're almost done. We're almost done. After that, it goes to Sheriff Hopper. They're having some kind of like Christmas party at the police station, and he like starts packing up food to go and shit. And then it shows him driving out to the woods. He gets out of the car and goes to this one special area that's like a little like chest, and it's like a little Minecraft chest in the middle of the woods, and he puts the food in there and shuts the lid. And is that food supposed to be for 11? I'm confused.
Yes, basically 11's gonna get that from the upside down, basically.
Alright, so then it goes back to Will's house, and Will, Jonathan, and his mom are sitting around the table. I'm assuming having Christmas dinner, and they're just talking about stuff, and then Will says, "Hold on, I'll be right back." And then he goes into the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror, and then all of a sudden like throws up in the sink, and you see like a little tiny little eel thing, like the one that was in his mouth, and it goes down the drain. And then like he has like a moment where he's looking in the mirror, and he like flashes between the real world and the upside down for a second, and it freaks him out. And Austin was telling me now Will is connected with the upside down, basically.
Yeah.
And then after that, it goes to back. Will comes back to the table, and they start joking around, having a good time, and it pans out the window, and then the credits roll, and that is the end of Stranger Things season 1. We finished it. Well, we finished the first season. We got 2 more seasons to go, because I don't know when season 4 comes out.
I don't know.
But so yeah, that was Stranger Things season 1, guys. Moving on to season 2 eventually.
Yeah.
But overall, the finale of season 1, I'll let you give your thoughts on season 1 as a whole and the finale of season 1, since I was just reviewing most of the last episode.
Well, honestly, when it comes to Stranger Things season 1, it's good, but it's not as good as the later seasons. The later seasons have way more like fulfilling finales and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a great start off to a good show. So
yeah,
that's basically my opinion on
it. My opinion. So, well, I'll ask you this afterwards, but this was my first time watching Stranger Things in general. This is the first time viewing of season 1 for me, and I will say I really did enjoy everything that I saw. Every episode was great in its own way. Acting all around by everybody was well done. I don't think there was really a bad actor at all in this. Um, the story was well done.
Brown. And she was good, but So you're telling me you're admitting that Millie Bobby Brown was good? Just
She was good in this, yeah.
okay. I just need that on tape.
Hmm.
I wish we would have had it on tape where you said you were looking at Brie Larson's photo shoots.
Nah.
We're gonna watch a Brie Larson show one day or a Brie Larson movie one day, just cause you want to keep the Millie Bobby Brown thing going. As long as she's not as bad as she was in Godzilla, I don't care. But fucking, she was good in this. She played the 11 character really good, even though she didn't have that much dialogue. Like she played the character really good. All the casting for the kids was great. They all played their roles like great. Uh, I mean, literally every character was great. Hopper was great as the sheriff. Jonathan and Nancy's characters were great. Um, like, I mean, the only characters that really didn't matter to the first season really was Mike's parents,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's really about all I can think of.
I mean,
I mean, I guess the
They
science
don't
teacher too.
matter. They don't really like Mike's parents don't matter for the rest of the series so far. So
Because I mean, they're just there because they're his parents. Really, they don't really serve any story purpose besides being the parents. Um,
yeah.
but um, yeah, I really enjoyed this first season. I'm excited to see the second season, then eventually the third, and then I imagine after that I'll be really excited for when season 4 drops. But with that being said, Stranger Things season 1, um, I would give that a 10 out of 10. That was really good.
Yeah,
Really
same
well
here.
done. But what I wanted to ask you, and then we can wrap this Stranger Things segment up finally. But um, so this was your second time watching season 1. Did any of your thoughts or feelings change about season 1 with your second viewing?
I mean, it definitely made me realize how much more like younger the the kids were at the time. Because in season 3, dude, they are fucking they are like 16, 15. Like they are they're not like 12 like they are in this in season 1. So that definitely did like change my perspective on it. But I mean, it it does tell me that it's still like the first season's still like the bland season, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other two seasons I think are way better than the first season. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's mainly.
All right. Well, with that being said, that was Stranger Things for this week. I don't know when we're gonna start up season 2 of Stranger Things,
Well, I feel like we
but
should do. We could start up season 2 next week on the podcast. Um, and we could do season 2 for the next 9 episodes. Oh, okay.
hmm.
Well, now